Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson and welcome back to another Tales from the Backlog Deep Dive, where each week I'm joined by a guest to deep dive a game from our backlogs. Today's game is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. But before we get into that, a few quick things. If this is your first time here, first of all, thank you for stopping by. Thank you for checking out the show. Here's how spoilers work on today's episode. Now, I know this game is quite old, and a lot of people listening or watching have probably played this game. We're still going to abide by the usual spoiler policy. We're not going to spoil big things that happen. There's a big world change that happens at some point. We're not going to spoil what goes on with that. We're not going to spoil the story and things like that, as always, even with A Link to the Past. So there will be a dedicated spoiler section later on in the episode. Check down in the timestamps if you want to know when spoilers begin, but until that point, you're safe. And if you like the show, please consider supporting in any way that you can, including monetarily at patreon.com/realdavejackson, telling a friend, sharing the show, leaving a review. If you're here on YouTube, likes, comments, subscriptions, all of those things are very helpful. It will help people find the show. And we want people to find this show because we're going to have a good one. And I have a great guest joining me on the show today, a first-time friend of the show, a writer whose work can be found all around the internet, and the host of FunFactor podcast and holder of the Triforce of Charisma. Welcome to the show, Ty Schalter.
Thank you so much, Dave. That is super, super kind. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be on the show. I'm a fan of it. I love what you do. And I'm shaking in my boots a little bit because my podcast partner for FunFactor, Aiden Moher, did Vagrant Story with you. And not only is that an excellent, excellent episode, a great way to spend, a couple hours or hour and a half. That's also, he was telling me privately, one of his favorite podcasts he's ever done of any sort anywhere. And he also interviewed the guy who did the localization well before. And he also wrote a book, Fight Magic Items, The Rise of Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, and JRPGs in the West, which was published by Running Press, which is a Hachette imprint. So a Big Five published book on the history of games like that. I do not have that history with A Link to the Past. So I have big shoes to fill, but I will do my best.
Well, I have not interviewed Miyamoto either, so we're on even footing on the show here today. Really excited to have you here, though. This is a game, A Link to the Past, that it feels like a lot of people have, a lot of people who do shows like this or have YouTube channels about gaming and stuff, feels like everyone's done A Link to the Past, and it's our turn today. So everyone can look forward to what we think about this. And I think that, we'll get into it here in a bit. I think we have some pretty interesting perspective coming into the episode today. So real quick, some things about A Link to the Past, some data, some statistics, things like that. It is an action-adventure game developed and published by Nintendo for the Super Nintendo. It came out in 1991 in Japan and 1992 everywhere else. It was directed by Takashi Tezuka and produced by Shigeru Miyamoto. And in case people don't know what the game is, I don't want to assume that everyone knows what's up. We have our customary elevator pitches for the top of the show. My quick pitch is, this is the origin of what we all colloquially refer to as, that was a word, I should have picked an easier one. We refer to this as the Zelda Formula, the origin of the Zelda Formula. Ty, what's the pitch for you?
Well, I thought you nailed it. So I was racking my brain. I was like, I need to do an AI thesaurus rephrase, just swap out words. But no, so I'll say it is everything you love and hate about Zelda meets everything you love and hate about old school 2D games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to hit all of those throughout the course of the episode today. I played this on Switch via the NSO online service. I just did the ATM machine thing. NSO took me around 10, 15 hours to beat. You can't see those stats with Switch. Thank you for making this difficult all the time. Ty, how did you play this? How long did it take you?
Yeah, same for me. I did Nintendo Switch Online. Probably closer to 20 hours. I did get all the items and most every heart, I think. But I'm gonna admit to cheesing it a little bit, where I use the systems rewind feature to where it was just like, okay, that's a stupid mistake, or like I felt like an unfair thing, and I knew I was gonna have to replay a whole bunch because I was trying to get this played through and really experienced the game. So it's kind of a wash in terms of I probably went for more of a completionist run than I would have if I didn't have that feature. So, like I said, about 20 hours.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of exploring to do, and if you don't really get into exploring a lot, you can kind of streamline this game and go straight from place to place, especially if you know what you're doing. And that leads us into our histories with this game and with the Zelda series in general. Now, I've done a couple Zelda games on the show before, and I've kind of gone through this history a little bit. Breath of the Wild was an episode in the past, and the Minish Cap, I think those are the two at this point where I have episodes already out there. So the guest goes first, though. Ty, what's your history with Zelda, and then A Link to the Past in particular?
Sure. Yeah. My first Zelda game was the first Zelda game on NES. I was obviously terrible at it at age 5, but I was enraptured by what it was doing. I found it, phenomenally challenging once we get past the second or third dungeon. The Lost Woods got truly lost. So it was very, very tough, but I loved the sense of adventure and I wanted more. And I really loved the big swings of Zelda 2. But I was then 6 years old and not really any better. And that game is inscrutable for a lot of people even today. So I loved the NPCs and the townsfolk and the actual attempts at storytelling and the combat. I couldn't even begin to figure out what was going on with the combat. From Ocarina of Time on, I played and owned and loved all the mainline big console Zelda games. And then as they were kind of coming out, my kids were born in 2004, 2006, and 2008. So somewhere around 08, 09, maybe it was the Wind Waker was there an HD remake for Wii, I think?
Wii U, yeah.
Wii U, yeah, okay. So when that came out, we had hey, let's do like family movie night, but instead Dad's going to play through Wind Waker. And so we did that. And then we did Skyward Sword, and we did other games too, and we played Guitar Hero. We did a lot of family gaming, but the Zelda games was like everybody's sitting down and we're watching Dad play through, and we're suggesting, and we're like, hey, okay, what should I do? When there's choices, what choices should I make? If there's something I got to name something, what is it going to be? So Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, much of Breath of the Wild. By the time Breath of the Wild came out, the kids were like, yeah, cool, Dad, I'm going to play on my own game save. So Zelda deep history with the series, but I was never a handheld guy. The Game Boy Advance, I think, is the only Game Boy that I owned. You can see a Virtual Boy over my right shoulder, not portable. Also, no mainline Zelda games for it. So, that is my history with it. Missed all of those, but I don't know how I missed A Link to the Past. Yeah, I think I was like a little slow to get the Super Nintendo. I ended up saving for it for my own allowance money. So it was probably 93 when I finally got one. And I don't know why I never went back for it or missed it. There's too much else. And then I started mowing lawns like the summer after. And then the summer after that, I got a PlayStation basically at launch. And so it's just, I don't know, that was just a hole. So I whiffed on it. And same thing when we got Nintendo Switch Online, I was like, oh, I never played that one. So I fired it up when like a couple, 3 kids were around. I can't remember if all of them were in there. It wasn't a big sit down. It was just let's check this out. Nintendo Switch Online. And so I played, the first, I think I got up to getting the Master Sword, which is, I don't think it's well ahead of our spoiler wall. It's wildly early, for what we think of as the Zelda formula, I think.
Right.
And so I was like, wow, okay, I get the Master Sword already. Wow, okay. And I probably only played like 3-4 hours and didn't touch it again. And so up until this episode, that's the history of my history with this game.
Yeah. Like you, I have a long history with the Zelda series, but mine is mostly, well, not mostly, but it did start on the handhelds. Link's Awakening was my first Zelda game on the Game Boy, and then Link's Awakening DX. I liked it so much, I wanted to play it in color really badly. And then basically all of them after that, the only one that I didn't play was Skyward Sword. I borrowed that from a friend and played for a few hours and didn't like it, and then gave it back. But all the others I owned and played. So everything from Link's Awakening onward, but everything before Link's Awakening, I was I basically played all of them the last couple of years, Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. And with A Link to the Past in particular, I never had a Super Nintendo. So I played this actually on the Game Boy Advance when that was like a new release for the GBA. But didn't get very far, always fizzled out. And then like you said, when it dropped on NSO, I picked it up, was like you, oh, A Link to the Past. I'm going to beat that game this time. And then tried it 2 or 3 more times, always fizzled out. Around the time, like you said, that you get the Master Sword, a handful of hours into the game. So we're both coming to this game with a pretty equal, but like really roundabout way of finally getting to A Link to the Past. Like both of us, obviously big Zelda fans, but not having a ton of experience with this like super foundational Zelda game. Arguably, like you could make the argument that the first Zelda game is the most foundational, but I would argue that this is actually the one. This is the one that kind of set the course for the series forever. And after playing it and beating it, I kind of get the feeling that like, yes, this is the one that set the course for the path that the franchise would take for 25 years. And it feels like a first step on that path rather than like the shining example of what this type of game can be. And that's what I see out there a lot, is I see a lot of like Zelda peaked at A Link to the Past and never got better. I see so much of that out there. And it's not to say that I didn't enjoy the game, but I really strongly disagree with that idea. I had like an okay time with this, but I definitely don't like it nearly as much as most of the other Zelda games. Like, actually, I want to say that I don't like the DS games, and I've really cooled on Twilight Princess. But as far as the other ones, like Minish Cap, Ocarina, Majora's Mask, I like those a lot more than A Link to the Past. And we have a whole podcast ahead of us to get into that. But that's where I'm kind of at with this. And the other thing I just want to like point out, which makes it kind of interesting when I go in my Discord server and talk about my progress with A Link to the Past, and sometimes my frustrations with it, is this is one of those games that seemingly everybody played when they were a kid. So all of the like frustrations of trying to find things or know where to go, or, you know, oh, I can't get into this dungeon, I need an item, where the fuck is this thing? Yeah. Everyone's like, well, I played this 100 times when I was 10 years old, so I know everything. I cannot empathize with you anymore. It's one of those games. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I have those games too. The original Pokemon games are those games for me where it's like, yeah, I get it, but like, I know everything about those games, so I don't have a lot of frustrations with those anymore. I know what's up fully. So it's just kind of interesting that like, this is one of those games that it's hard to talk about fresh experiences with people who are also having fresh experiences, which is why I'm glad that you and I are kind of on equal footing with this one. So how did you find your first playthrough, just kind of generally here?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I was stunned at how much of Zelda was here in the gameplay formula, and like the lore, but like down to specific mechanics and items. Like, there are things that I thought were like Wind Waker things that are here. There are things that I thought were Twilight Princess things that are here. You know, there's weapons and items that I had no idea were already baked in at the Super Nintendo level. And yeah, I was really impressed with that. And then also it was such a quantum leap, clearly, from Zelda 1, you know, and I've said for a long time, you have the Zelda and Castlevania did the same thing, which was like their first one was awesome. Their second one, they both went down a more storytelling, NPC, RPG, stat tree, skill tree path to some success. And then they tacked back towards, well, what if we started back at 1 and made a different 2? Yeah. And like, that's what we've got here, you know, and it's like, take Zelda 1 5 years later, polish everything up and add so much stuff. So like, that's really cool. Also had a lot of frustrations, especially around traversal, and just the moment to moment playing of the game when you were not in dungeons and not in story, and not solving puzzles was just like, man, what what do we what do we got? You know, like if it's there were a lot of times like I know what to do and I can't do it and I don't know why. There's I
Yeah.
know what I need to find and I can't find it. There's a lot of going around in circles, and circles are slow and annoying.
Hmm.
So yeah, I totally empathize, and it's like, hey, you know, this was designed to give kids something to eat up their summer, you know, and I'm going, okay, I have a finite number of hours to play this before I have to come on to the Tales from the Backlog podcast and play this like I know what I'm talking about. So like chop, like let's figure this out.
Yeah, it's interesting just like having a game that was kind of like designed in that way, like you said, where this is made to just let people roam and explore and stuff like that. And I'm all about. I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom right now, and I'm doing so
Hmm.
much roaming and exploring.
Hmm.
So it's not like I'm opposed to roaming and exploring. I agree with you though. I don't find this game fun to roam and explore in. So
Hmm.
like there's this expectation, and I just want to like get this out there that like I know what this game is asking of me, and I did not enjoy doing what it's asking of me
Yes.
here. Like we're coming to this with our perspectives in the modern day. And the other thing, like you mentioned the big leap from Zelda 1, which like I can put myself in the shoes of someone in 1992 who played Zelda 1 up to 5 years before that and was like, holy fucking shit, look what they
Yeah.
did. Look at this.
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
put myself in those shoes, but I step out of those shoes and back into the real world. And like with my critical perspective on the show here, that's not the place that I approach criticism from that historical perspective. I approach it as like, I'm just going to play this game and see what this game is. So
Hmm.
like, I'm going to stop couching my opinions with stuff like this once we get after this music
Uh-huh.
break. But like, I know there's a lot of A Link to the Past fans out there, and just be like, I get it. I know, especially if you played this in 1992, I know why this game blew your mind. But me playing this, not me playing this now. I played this like 7 times through the years since the GBA release, and I've never
Hmm.
really gotten on with it. And now I finished the game, and I think I'm ready to kind of put those feelings into words as to why. Why was this the only Zelda game that I owned, except the DS games, that I didn't like and play through the entire thing, even when I was like 13, 14 years old? I think I'm ready to finally get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a music break. And then when we come back from the break, we'll set up the story of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. In The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, you're never going to believe this, but you play as Link. And Link is a descendant of the mythical Knights of Hyrule. At the beginning of the game, Link is asleep. He wakes up to a telepathic message from Princess Zelda saying that the castle has been overtaken and that she's locked in the dungeon. Link sets out to rescue Zelda and eventually to obtain the mythical Master Sword that's able to defeat this invader that's taking over the kingdom of Hyrule and possibly more. So Zelda stories, it's going to be an interesting thing to talk about because I kind of
Yeah.
feel like, first of all, that's where I'm going to stop with like the plot. You're on a mission to save Zelda. And then this game does switch things up as to like, how do you go about saving
Yeah.
Zelda? It's a
Yeah.
little different in this, which is cool. But when talking about Zelda, I'm also playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet right now, which is another series that I feel like gets graded on a curve when we talk about stories. Is it a good,
Sure.
entertaining story, or is it good for Pokemon standards? And that's kind of how I feel about Zelda here. So how did you feel? You mentioned the story and our kind of like quick thoughts up at the top here. Did you enjoy going on the adventure and all of the things that adventure contained?
Yeah, and I think the opening was really gripping. You know, I
Mhm.
thought it was grabby. We've got it's a dark and stormy night, and you know, okay, Zelda, like what's happening? You know, and you know, we have a couple of grabby moments. And it gets you okay, like into it really. And as we got later in the game, you know, I was like, whoa, like doing the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme, because I'm seeing,
Mhm.
oh, this is from Twilight Princess. Oh, this
Yeah.
is reference later. Like, I'm recognizing these moments in other games, and I again kind of thought these are some swings that the series had not taken yet, right? It was not taking in the 16-bit era.
Mm.
And so, with Zelda 1, it's like, okay, like, it's dangerous to go alone, take this, and then, most of the story is in the instruction manual, and then you beat the game, and then, okay, cool, there's credits. And it's like that. This is a huge leap forward from that.
Mhm.
But again, as you're saying, I was also thinking about Tears of the Kingdom, and like, how is this story distributed over all of this roaming and exploring? How is it plotted? How is it getting you there? And how much story are you actually getting? Um, and so, like, even though there was more than I was fearing, more than I was prepared for, and it
Mhm.
was surprisingly positive in some ways, it was still less than it could have been, and some of the stuff that I was most interested and excited in, I don't think was executed as well as it could have been. Um, and yeah, and for Zelda, where we grade on a curve, I think that's part of it too. It feels a little unfair to point out that Final Fantasy IV came out just before this game in
Mhm.
Japan, and Final Fantasy V came out a year later, because they're doing different things. But still, it's kind of like, again, it's a leap forward from Zelda 1. There's nothing else like it on the Super Nintendo at this time, but it's also like, they could have done better. They could have done more. There could have been more dialogue. It could have been better. The characters could have been better fleshed out. And certainly, according with other Zelda games, some of them are more tightly plotted. Some of them, like Tears of the Kingdom, are so open-ended the story kind of falls out the bottom. No matter how good the story moments are, right? So it's like, that's for the Zelda formula. They do tinker with it more or less, but you still, in any other mainline Zelda experience besides one, you're getting more dialogue, more story, more
Mhm.
actual characters. I think they're only like, well, again, grading on a curve, there's like really 2 or 3 characters that actually have lines in the whole thing,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, named characters at least. So it's kind of, and there's some beautiful moments. There's some beautiful storytelling moments. I know I'm contradicting myself, but it's like, it's not cohesive enough, and it's especially not cohesive enough to keep me propelled, wanting to find out what's going to happen next, because I know what's going to happen next, and I've got 8 hours of dorking around through annoying fields to do it.
Yeah. I agree that pointing out Final Fantasy IV, not that these games are going for similar things, but that just to point out that like some people have really put a focus on telling stories before this. So like
Yes.
it's not like we're at a point in gaming history where stories were not important yet or something like that. So that being said, like I agree with you, there's some like good points, and I think that like we talked about this a little bit in a Dragon Quest V episode that you haven't had a chance to listen to yet, but it's one of those games where like if you kind of like combine all of your experiences into like quote the story of A Link to the Past, like this is what happened and I went through these trials and tribulations to get into these temples and save these people that need to be saved and things like that, you can start to put together like a fun adventure tale and stuff. But the plot and like the things that people say in the game and the
Yes.
story of
Yes.
Hyrule and the story of Link and stuff like that is just pretty underdeveloped. Like there's characters later on that when you find them, they'll give you like a little hit of lore about the story. And they could have been more. They could have been
Oh, yes.
they could have been people. They could have been characters instead of
Uh-huh.
like more or less a little thing you find. You might as well have found a book that has those words written in them. They would function the same in the story as a person. So like the way that they are. So there's ways that like they could have told the story better, but like it comes together. And I think this is what I mean when we say we grade on the Zelda curve. Like, did I play through this and was like, this story sucks? No. But
Right.
like looking at it, zoomed out, is it an affecting story? No. Is it super entertaining? Not really. It just kind of like gives you the drive for your adventure. And if you're the type who comes out of this and you're like, I have my story playing A Link to the Past, and I went up here and I found
Yeah.
this magic medallion that does this crazy spell and I wipe the floor with the next boss that I fought with it and stuff like that. Like things can coalesce like that. But I don't want to grade this too strongly on the Zelda story curve, because I'm probably on record before as saying that I've never really thought that a Zelda story was super compelling to begin with, outside of there's like that lizard brain thing of like, oh, the princess is in trouble. Well, I got to go rescue the princess.
Yeah.
Like that's what compels you in most of the games.
Yeah. Well, I think, Wind Waker certainly, Ocarina, with Ocarina, it's like, okay, it's on the box, right? It's like, okay, this is going to involve time travel.
Yeah.
Like, like, wow. And so it is still kind of a curveball when it actually happens and your experience of it. And there's so many more things going on with that game. So it's like, there's definitely the sort of mid-game, whoa moment, and this has that. But then also Wind Waker, there's so much more. Zelda is so much more of a character. There's so much more dialogue. There's so many more townspeople. There's so much more stuff that means stuff. And again, this is like, in a lot of ways, very 8-bit, in terms of, okay, these are the townsfolk and there's not that many towns. There's one town. So you're going town to town and there's different towns. So there's one town,
right?
And a lot of times the characters are like, this is the man. And you talk to the man. It's like, hello, here is item. You're like, okay, great. And so there's some personality in the graphics, there's some personality in the animation, and that's doing a lot of the lifting. And a lot of the best moments of storytelling, I think, are in completely missable side quests. Or completely inscrutable side quests.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, okay, like you really are just kind of going from person to person, and they're barely any better than thank you, Mario, but our princess is in another castle, because that's what it is. You're ultimately just going, there's a trapped princess and you got to go get her. And it's like, okay, all right.
Actually, after I had just finished talking, I was like, oh, Majora's Mask had a good, interesting story with people who have interesting things to say and stuff, like, because the game is so fucking weird and everyone's like fully in on that weirdness. I did do a Majora's Mask episode. I forgot about that too. So yeah, a lot of Zelda games. And then, so all told, not to dwell too much on the story, like it's okay. It provides that kind of like adventuring background for what you're doing. To me, Zelda is a gameplay series like way ahead of like expecting anything out of a story or even like a compelling world building situation or anything like that. But it does give you the reason why you're doing the things that you're doing and interesting reasons for why your gameplay may have shifted, so to speak. So you mentioned visuals and animation, so we can talk about that for a second. This is just another example to me of how like the Super Nintendo may look a little old, but it is a timeless way that games look. And the best looking Super Nintendo games will never look outdated to me. Right. This is a timeless game, a timeless style, and A Link to the Past looks timeless to me. It looks really good. And actually, I don't think I've ever played this as intended on a Super Nintendo, on a CRT, but even on NSO, it looks nice. The way, I don't know what they're doing with it, but it looks nice. And like you said, the animations, the way that, characters can express things through little animations or bosses or enemies and things like that, it all lends an extra layer of character to the game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Link having multiple outfits, he's got the pink hair, but then that changes when you change your hat changes, and when you change tunics, like that's really cool. And some of the animation, like the fortune teller sleeves and stuff, just like it feels loose, it feels roby. They're communicating a lot with these sprites. Some of the enemy sprites are really cool. And I was joking with my eldest, who played this, was watching over my shoulder most of the time. She's 20 and has always been like, okay, great, you're gonna do this, then like I gotta be your wingman kind of thing.
Nice. So
yeah, she was great to play with, and we bounced stuff off each other. And every once in a while I did okay, I've been walking in circles long enough. Can you look it up? Where is it? Okay, great. Thank you. But we're already encountering some of the barely legible anatomy of some of the Zelda 1 enemies
Yeah.
getting rendered in higher fidelity. We're in 16-bit, and there's, some of the like levers and p-hats and, like, oh yeah, when we were a kid, this just looked kind of like a windmill that popped up out of the ground.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a take on it. Sure. And it seems like they're struggling it even with 16-bit. They're like, we have too many pixels and too much color to just, we've got to make this look like something. I guess it looks like this now. So the set pieces, especially some of the like dungeon entrances, look just incredible. Some of the landscapes really do too. There's some effects. There's a moment you're on a mountain and there's like the cloud deck and there's lightning visible beneath the cloud deck, like you're above this, and it's like, ooh, like they are doing stuff. So like the highs are really, really high. So later in the game, there's some stuff that's hit or miss for me. That's more in terms of like art direction. And
there's like some anonymous looking dungeons for sure. Like today I went back, I looked through someone's playthrough on YouTube just to be like, okay, look at this dungeon, remember this dungeon, stuff like that. And there was a couple where I was like, I don't remember this dungeon until it was like specific rooms. Like I kind of feel like, especially with the Super Nintendo and onward, you should be able to look at like a dungeon and be like, I remember that place from this room, from this color palette, etc. And there's some pretty anonymous stuff here and there throughout the second half of the game for sure.
Yeah. And I also felt it was kind of like, maybe better save for the spoiler wall. But there was some stuff where I was just kind of like, okay, I'm not getting the feeling this is supposed to evoke. I'm forgetting where I'm at in this game right now, because it's like it's not as consistent a theme and tone as they were shooting for, I think.
I think that kind of extends to like exploring on the overworld a little bit too. Like the map's not that big, but it still has plenty of places that like either look too similar or there's some other like gameplay thing obstructing easily maneuvering and maybe trying to remember these places. Like I think one of the things about these like 2D Zelda games is even if the places look similar, there's always like landmarks that will at least like you walk a couple screens and you're like, oh, there's that temple or there's that house or something like that. And a lot of the houses look the same, or like there's like bigger areas that look too similar that, maybe kind of impede that, like that sense of, okay, I'm here, I need to go around, because it's not as simple as looking at the map and being like, oh, just walk 2 squares down. Like it's never that simple in this game. So you got to remember, like, I got to go to this place, but to get down to this place, I have to find this place and loop around this other place. And then like finding that square was sometimes an issue. The place that would allow me to get around some obstacle and get to the place I want to go. And I think some of that starts with like how the world looks, even though it's not that big. Like I still found myself like, all right, where the fuck am I? Like,
yes.
Yeah. Like a couple times when I would legit have to like reset to a place where I knew the entries and exits and then like try again with a slightly different route maybe.
Yeah. And I was constantly checking the world map, to be like, okay, cool. I got to go down here and then go to there. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And I go down a screen and then be like, wait, okay, so I need to turn. Is this where I need to turn? Okay, let me see the map again. Okay, yeah, no, it's not. Okay, there. Now I turn. Oh, wait, hold on. There's 2 lefts. I was going to turn left. Does it go up on the hill? If I go up on the hill, can I go? Oh, no, I got to go down. Okay.
Yeah.
So go down below the hill. That's the way the path goes. Okay, check the map. Is this where? Yeah, that's where I go. So it's just like there's a huge amount of going back, of being like, I'm just trying to go back to this. I went and got the thing. I was on a fetch quest. I got the thing. Now I need to go back, and like I cannot remember the way I came. And there's a lot of brown. There's a lot of desert and hills and general landscape has this kind of sameness to it, like you said, and then sometimes there's landmarks, and now we're in the section where all the landmarks are arranged on a grid. So there's landmarks, but you have no idea which one is. It's not helping. So that was definitely detracting from it for me.
It sometimes contributed to a feeling of getting lost, which like I think that's part of Zelda. I think that's part of, it was part of Zelda 1, that's for sure. And so like maybe that's by design too. And maybe they just didn't want to make everything look super different, or maybe they didn't have enough colors to stay within the style they wanted. You're not going to make like a bright pink area or something like that matching Link's hair, but sometimes it contributed to a little bit of gameplay frustration or kind of anonymous feeling of where you are. But as far as like, if you just look at screenshots of the game or like look at enemy sprites or especially, enemy animations and stuff, I like all that stuff a lot. But you'll very rarely find me saying that any Super Nintendo game looks bad anyway. It's just a pretty timeless thing to me. So speaking of timeless, Zelda music is timeless. Done by Koji Kondo, huge name in video game composing, arguably maybe on a Mount Rushmore for video game music out there. What do you think of the soundtrack here?
Yeah, it was funny because I did say I'm watching the credits. I'm like, oh, Koji Kondo. Yeah, doing it. That's him. Yep. He's the guy. The guy. And the overworld theme is the overworld theme. Sounds great. It gives you the nostalgia. There are the fairy fountain theme is the fairy fountain theme. Sounds great. Cool. I didn't even think about how underwhelmed I was by the music until I was looking at your notes, and I was like, oh, that's right. There was like no music. I mean, and there was music, there are a couple of different overworld themes. One is the classic Zelda overworld theme, and the other one is like a good theme. It's like, it's good. It's fine. It's, you're tootling around, you're doing the thing. It's fine. Dungeons all had the same music, and the music was just this sort of like atmospheric, like string, like,
yeah.
And it's like, it's just like, can we just like trigger your anxiety? Like, if that's what we're trying to do. And like, whether it's successful or not, even in doing that, buckle up for like 98 minutes of just that on a loop, because that's all there is. And I think that was a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. When we get back into games like this, older games, I wonder about memory. I wonder about how many songs they could fit onto the game or something like that. I would have really liked different music for different dungeons because that one thing, like if you want to use that song for all the caves in the world, just on the overworld caves, do that. It's a cave song. And it's like, it's designed to be like, oh, you're in a dangerous place. This is not a place of melody or whatever. Like, I get it. But it's grating. And then when you layer on top of that the low health beeping alarm, it is fucking unbearable.
And when I say cheesing, most of the cheesing I was doing was literally, my eldest was like, can you please, whenever you take the hit that gets you down to that level, rewind and not take that hit? Because like it's unbearable. It's so bad. It's so loud. It's so aggressive. It's so repetitive. And then they also used one beep of that alarm beep as a menu sound in some cases. So they're like literally moments where I was like, okay, yeah, boop, boop. Okay, like select and be like, beep. And I'm like, oh, God, like, okay, and then the threshold creeps up as you gain hearts. So you drop down to like 4 or 5 hearts. It's like beep, beep, beep. And you're like, oh no. I can't deal with it. So that low health alarm was incredibly obnoxious. And, but also I thought there was some really great sound effects for, kind of broader sound, like bouncing off rubber things and some of the items, some of the weapons, like their sounds sounded really good, like stuff tinking off of enemies, and I think there was a good variety in that. But having different themes would have helped a ton. There's enough different overworld sections, let alone dungeons, that we could have had now we're in this area, now we're in that area, that would have helped sell some of the differential in areas, I think. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's part of the reason why I kind of came out of this like, like Zelda's a series that's famous for music and famous for like big melodies and recognizable themes and stuff like that. And I mostly came out of this being like this, I don't know if it's the origin, but it's like very close to, if not the origin for a lot of the things that we associate with Zelda, like the Kakariko Village song, the song that plays in shops, the song that plays when you're in the fairy fountain or on the file select screen. I think it's the same song. And then like the big theme and stuff like that. But while actually playing the game, it was a lot of that dungeon track, and it was a lot of that beeping low health alarm, and a lot of like the overworld themes are good, but the loop is really short, I thought. And it, again, might be a tech thing to have but it when the loop is short and you're out there for a long time, or maybe you're like you duck into a cave and then come back out and the song restarts. Yeah. Stuff like that. Like I it might be asking too much, but as from the experience here, having that song restart again with the big blaring like all the time, it feels like that's the part of the song I was always hearing. And so that leaves me with just like a generally less enthusiastic experience about the A Link to the Past soundtrack. And like I listened to it on YouTube again after we were done. I was like, yeah, it's a good soundtrack. It's Koji Kondo. Like he doesn't make shitty music or anything.
Right.
But
right.
Like the implementation and the experience of it in A Link to the Past was like just not at the level of a lot of the other Zelda games that came later, where a lot of like the big things that you associate with your time with the game are songs and music. And especially later on when music itself became a more important part of the story and your gameplay stuff than it actually is in this game. Mm-hmm. You still use a flute to fast travel, but like you don't learn different songs to travel to different places or anything like that. Yes. So yeah, not to say that this is a bad soundtrack, but I'm not going to like remember this as like, what soundtrack is one of my favorites? A Link to the Past. It's just not going to be there.
No. And I should have listened to the soundtrack straight through and see if there's, stuff that I missed or, I just wasn't paying attention. But I also had the inverse experience with the dual every single cave and every single dungeon theme where I'm like, oh, there's a cave I don't think I've been in. And I'd go in and be like, me. And I just, nope, I don't want to do a cave right now. Like that's, I'm looking for something specific, and it would be that cave music, and I'd just be like, nope, back out, go to, all right, cool, fine, so like that I had that same thing where like what little connection the music was having to me besides nostalgia for the big main things was like honestly kind of negative, and that's a bummer. It's a missed opportunity for sure. And maybe if there was more story moments where you had more of the, okay, well, this is so-and-so's theme, and then you have 2 or 3 great conversations with so-and-so. Okay, well, there would have to be named characters and you would have to be having multiple conversations with them. And if they had their own music, it would hit harder. Or maybe if they had, maybe there is their own music and I missed it because I was just, okay, whatever. All right, cool. Moving on. Not that by the way, I am a religious read all the text guy. I'm not skipping key text, especially in a game where I know key text like this is the difference between you getting the thing you need to complete the dungeon and not. I'm just saying it's washing over me because it's kind of generic NPC dialogue, and also if there's music, it's not landing for me because I'm not connecting to it emotionally.
Right. You kind of mentioned your association with the music too, and I was thinking about this earlier, and a lot of times, if I'm not having a great time playing a game, if I'm frustrated while playing a game, I will then associate music with that frustration, which sucks because it doesn't feel like it's, fair to the music itself. When we come on here and we're like, yeah, the soundtrack didn't do much for you. And I'm thinking to myself, did the soundtrack not do much for me because I was frustrated and lost and like, I need this item. I don't know where the hell I'm supposed to go to get it. And I don't have a great indication from like the game of, what do I even need here? So then as I'm wandering around the overworld, or maybe like the secondary overworld theme that you hear for most of the the later part of the game, which I think is like a pretty decent song. But I was listening to that song today, and it had that little like spike of association with being frustrated or being annoyed. And like, I think that can play into a soundtrack, not like it can play into you coming out of a game experience being like, soundtrack didn't do much for me, when the gameplay is kind of like, or maybe the beeping low health in a tack on of gameplay. Like if that's what you associate with the music, then you're going to come on the show and be like, yeah, the soundtrack was okay, but like not my favorite. So it's a weird little thing with games, right?
It is. And it's part of the challenge, I think, of composing for music. And it's especially as, in modern games have gone towards more atmospheric soundtracks anyway, rather than, okay, we're going to have iconic melodies and iconic themes. We're going to have a leitmotif for every single separate area or house or character or whatever. Hey, let's just have like dynamic swelling strings and it'll be fine. So you kind of dodge that problem, but then you also lose a lot of opportunities to make things hit. So maybe if the game had been better in spots, some of that music I would have connected to it better and remembered it better. And also maybe vice versa, because I should, like I said, I should have listened to it straight through. I probably will listen to it straight through again and see if there's anything that stands out. But mostly it's also moments of like, oh yeah, like you said, there's a flute where you fast travel, and it's a blue ocarina that looks just like the Ocarina of Time. And mostly you're sitting there going, oh, I know that thing from a better game where it's implemented better. Like, wow, cool. It's kind of emblematic of some of the other frustrations that we're having.
Yeah. Well, we have touched up on the experience of playing the game. I think it's time for us to get into that. But first, let's listen to a bit of music without the beeping low heart alarm. And when we come back from the music break, we'll talk about what it's like to play A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is a top-down, third-person action game. You have your sword, it is your main weapon, and you have a shield, and you can equip a secondary weapon or tool. So you have the two buttons. One of them swings the sword, the other does the thing that you have equipped. Let's start with the sword and shield, because those are your things from the beginning to the end. And the sword especially, it's your bread and butter. You're never going to stop using the sword. So I personally, I'm used to this because I've played a lot of the Zelda games like this, especially Link's Awakening. And I've played A Link to the Past before. Let's not forget that.
Yes.
Sword combat, fairly hit and miss for me. A little bit unsatisfying. There's two aspects to it. There's the one part where a lot of enemies, you can't just like run up and hit them straight on. A lot of like your basic dudes will have shields or they will have weapons that if you just swing, you'll bounce off of it. And that part I'm fine with. I get that. You got to be in the right position. You got to swing around their shield and stuff. I think that's cool. Maybe you have to hit a weak point or something like that. I'm cool with that. I feel like the sword should hit things throughout its entire swing arc. That's what swords do in real life. And I don't feel like it does that in this game. I feel like there's a part of your arc where you can see the sword hitting the thing you're trying to hit, and it just doesn't do it. And that was very frustrating for me.
Yeah, and there's a fuzziness all the way through where like every once in a while, and the other, like on the back end of the swing, there's every once in a while where it would hit it where I didn't think it did. Like every once in a while it would connect when I missed it and it connected. I'm okay. So it was like the same thing. And especially when it's okay, you are north, south, east, west, and your sword has a bit of a swing to it, but the hitbox is the collision is not detecting throughout the whole arc. And then you've got enemies approaching you. Some of them are, four directions also, but then some of them are homing. And they can just, they'll just follow you. They're just tracking you, and they're coming at all sorts of odd angles. And so you've got to like, is this it's kind of in between down and right? Okay, right. Oh shoot! But like I hit it as I was switching, so it actually still swung down. And if I had swung right, like I was trying to swing right, then it would have hit it, maybe, And take a hit, And if that's the hit that drops you down into the beeping frustration, if that's the hit that knocks you off a ledge, or even maybe you connect with them, but there's a like Newtonian objects
like a bounce back.
There's a recoil from even a successful hit that can also send you off a ledge, and so it's like, okay. I found the sword stuff that, and also like as typical, the Master Sword gives you, like, when you got the Master Sword and you're at full health, it has projectile capability. I feel like the projectile capability it's weak, but it's huge. It sweeps a gigantic swath from wherever you are to the edge of the screen, and you can just sit there, like mowing down, keeping projectiles at bay, and you take one unfortunate hit, and that's gone, and you're back down to just this weird hitbox. And so it's like it's such a big swing in offensive and defensive capability. Also, this defensive capability, you put in your notes, the shield thing blows.
It sucks.
Terrible.
It's gaming's worst shield, I think.
It's so bad. It does nothing in melee combat, and then even in projectile, it took me a while to figure out even what does it. And it's like, oh well, you can't be swinging your sword and get shield. Okay, so you need to just stand there, no input. It's not like press a button to block. It's just like stand there.
Yeah.
And if it's the kind of projectile your shield can block, which is, a smattering of them, and you don't know which, and it comes at the right angle. I think there's some sort of angle thing involved, like if it's hitting you in the back, like it doesn't, okay, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But then you have to stand there passively, and then it blocks it. Okay, great. But in the context of a fight, and in a lot of this, you're fighting in close quarters. There's objects around. There's
multiple enemies.
There's multiple enemies. So you're just sitting there going like, okay, well, either I can like stop and see if I get hit when I stand still to find out if using the shield is even an option in this situation, or I can just like move and attack. And so like something like 8 times in the back 20 hours of this, I accidentally blocked something with my shield, and it was a complete accident, and I did not try to replicate it.
Yeah, it's not great. It's very, like, you can block arrows, but like I just don't understand, like, why can I not block a sword swing? Why can I not block a spear? I have a shield. Why would Link not raise the shield to block an incoming sword attack or something like that? This is something that obviously later Zelda games agreed with us, and they were like, yeah, you should be able to just press a button to hold your shield up, and it works like a shield does, or at least like a shield does in video games. I get you're not going to block everything with a shield. I get it. With the sword, I've written in my notes, I've never been more afraid of bees than I was in A Link to the Past. The bees, like, legitimately, like, just like in real life, if the bees are swarming, I'm panicked. I need to find the next screen transition and get the fuck out of there. This was the thing that like really got me into like, why I'm swinging the sword. It is passing through the bees. Why is it not hitting them? And it's because the hurt box is not lined up specifically well. And I know that in real life, it's gonna be really difficult to hit a bee with a sword. I understand that, but this is Zelda. This is not real life. So that's kind of the thing. And there's others too, like an enemy is in this one position where it feels like there's no collision with the sword, even though I'm swinging through their body. It feels like that happens.
Yes.
And so like your basic toolkit, they both have their flaws. And I think they were both addressed in later Zelda games to work the way that they should. It's one of those things, I think we have a lot, especially in the gameplay section, where we have this game that, again, set the course for what is the structure? What is the formula for how Zelda games work? What do you have? What do you do? What's your sequence of things? It starts in this game and it continues for 25 years until people are so tired of it that they shake the entire thing up with Breath of the Wild, basically.
Yeah.
But this feels like they're like, okay, you have these things. They're kind of shitty, but you have them. And then in later games, they kept iterating on them. And this is like part one of why I don't think the play experience of A Link to the Past is this pure thing that was then sullied by later ideas in the series or something. I feel like this is the first example of gameplay in the 2D Zelda games and in the 3D ones too, mostly just continuously getting better throughout time. Even Link's Awakening is a better play experience to me than A Link to the Past, despite being on a less powerful machine to me.
Yeah, and some of the, because I think they try and give you the toolkit, right? Because it's like, and I love the Lord route too. Like, oh, Link, don't forget the spin move of our town's secret
spin move.
sword, famous spin move that we all know and can do so well.
Yeah,
you know, so like
kids are not
charges it
allowed
up.
to get driver's licenses until they do the spin move. That's
right.
That's their
That's
thing.
right. That's right. You know, and you see somebody out in the field and they want to get an apple and they do the spin move and the apple's like, oh, are you from Kakariko? Wow,
Yeah.
cool. You know the spin move. So you know, the charge up on that is slow enough and it doesn't get you much more reach. So like I feel like the bees are supposed to be you trigger the bee, you hear the bee sound, the bee sprite, and you do the spin move. And like that does work. But you probably are going to take a bee hit or two before then because you've got to charge it up first. And that it feels slow to me. It feels really slow. And like a lot of times I was trying, okay, I got to do this spin move. And I'm like, okay, this really only helps me, especially in a multi-enemy or like particularly tricky enemy situation, if I like lure them into a spot where I can hit them both with a spin move. Because the other thing is the enemies move fast, and the ones that are on a 4 cardinal direction track, I started to figure out they're doing a lot of like, oh yeah, I'm the guy who walks up and down 3 squares over and over. That's what I do. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me walk up to this guy and hit left turn. Like, and and you get hit, right? Because it's like, oh. And then maybe if you stand there and watch long enough, it's doing truly random left, right, up, down, or whatever. But I felt like every time I was trying to watch for like a pattern to make sure I don't get hit, and then I approached, the pattern would change. And it was like, okay, that's a way to do difficulty, I guess. But then it's also like, unless I walk up on them with the spin move charged and release it right when they do I didn't feel the same thing with the dash attack where you like charge and then you like run straight forward until you hit a wall and then there's a giant shake and a recoil and you're stunned for a minute. It's like, trying to deploy that in combat is completely futile. There's never enough open room. There's never one enemy that's lined up straight with you where they can't just move out of the way randomly. The guy who's moving up and down, you got to line up that dash move, right? It's useful only for interacting with certain objects, but it's supposed to be another tool you have in combat, and I did not find it useful for combat at all.
It's another thing that I think later on, if I'm remembering right, if you do that in Link's Awakening, it just kills the basic enemies as you charge through them. And that's what it should be in here, because you're executing a higher degree of skill to line up that dash attack. And so I think you should be rewarded for it. And instead, I mean, maybe like this thing would take 3 sword strikes and now you do 1 dash and 1 sword strike and it goes down. But still, like you do the dash and then when the dash is over, you're right in the middle of everything. And then, people are wailing on you. So
yeah, right.
The toolkit is the basic toolkit's a little bit less satisfying, I think, than I would like. But, you get the hang of it. Like as you go through, you get the hang of the angles you need to swing your sword at. You get the hang of what you can block. Like it's just things don't always work the way that I feel like they should.
Can I say also, I felt like there was a bell curve on this also for me, where like at the beginning I was like, okay, this is hard. I expected this to be hard. It's old school 2D combat. This is a evolution of Zelda 1 combat, which is, the same problems, only worse, really, in a way. It's like there's only so much you can do in this grid, right? So now we're off the grid. So it's like we're it's feeling better in some ways, but worse in others. Okay, cool. And then I did kind of get into it. I'm like, all right, cool. And so for like a good chunk of the middle of the game, I felt like, okay, I'm getting better at this. the flaws in the system are not that bad. If I'm
Mm.
making sure I've got full health, okay, cool. But then the difficulty goes up and we start doing these dungeons and it's like, okay, cool. Now you're on a 2-square ice bridge flooded with enemies, or now, and it's like, okay, well, now all the flaws in this system are once again back to the forefront and really frustrating again. Or like I said, traversal, where it seems like, hey, if I have to slog through however many game miles just to get back to this thing I'm trying to get back to over and over and over again, I've got to deal with all these same mobs over and over. You've never cleared out an area. There's not a dodge these enemy. You can run, you can kind of weave past them sort of, and we can talk about it in a second too. There's also, with no experience system and the game's economy, you can't really buy upgrades. There's no reward for taking the time for dealing with the enemies either. So if you take a stray, which you will, there's projectiles flying all around in a lot of areas. There goes your Master Sword thing, or boop, now you're in the health again. So it's like, it felt better for a while. And I was like, okay, and then once the difficulty spiked, it got frustrating again for me.
Interesting. Mine was the opposite. I felt like the beginning of the game was easy, probably because, again, it's like my 7th time doing the opening couple levels of this game. I thought those were easy. And then I felt like the middle portion of the game was really fucking hard. And I hammered save states in a lot of those dungeons. Because it's like, I know how to get back to this room. There's some just god awful dungeon rooms. Traps and dangerous rooms that are just they're like, some of them are like Zelda 2 levels of hatefully designed. And so I can get back to this room, no problem. So you're not introducing a challenge for me to get back to this room. So I'm just going to save state when I enter this room. And if I get through it, I'll do another save state so I never have to do it again. There's some where it's like, I didn't master this room. I just kind of like bumbled my way to the end of it. So the middle of the game was the most difficult for me. And then you mentioned the upgrades. The upgrades felt very backloaded to me, where like I didn't find a good way to increase my defense until really late in the game. And I didn't find a way to increase my offense until really late in the game. And this is one of those things that I went in, my Discord, and I was like, I'm getting fucking destroyed by these, this boss kills me in 3 hits. I feel like that's a lot for this type of game. And some people are like, do you have the armor upgrade? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What armor upgrade?
Yeah.
And it's like, so I looked it up and I was like, you got to talk to this person and then do this thing and then go to this one location you would never go to unless you're literally going everywhere. So that's part of the thing, like with this game that's expected of you. I think that they have this mentality that you're going to do this dungeon, you're going to get this new item that like is going to help you do stuff in 2 random places on the overworld map. And if you take the time after every dungeon to scour the overworld for new things that you can do, you might come across some of those armor upgrades and stuff like that. I didn't like exploring the overworld. I found it a real pain in the ass to navigate. Yeah. So like that thing, I get what they're doing, didn't work for me because it was like, you got to go up to this corner of the map for this. And it's like, it sucks going up there. I don't want to go up there. Like you got to do all this shit. Anytime it's like, you got to go up in the mountains. I was like, fuck, I hate going up in the mountains in this game.
Terrible.
Yeah. So that's why once I got those armor upgrades and, sword upgrades toward the end of the game, the bell curve went way down back to easy because I was like, I feel like a real character again. And I don't know, like it's one of those things where people are like, oh yeah, well, I played this game 100 times, so I know when I can get like the earliest possible time to get those. So I just do it. And it's one of those things where it's hard for people to see the new player experience again. Like, did you have the same thing with upgrading your character, exploring the world, finding pieces of heart and stuff like that?
And some of this is going to be post spoiler stuff. I do tend toward exploration kind of naturally, right? And I like to play the Zelda games that way. And so there
Yeah.
were I feel like I found the upgrades more or less on curve because I was exploring some,
Hmm.
and also some of the little tidbits. It was like, oh, okay, there's something here, right? Some things were very funny because it would be like, oh, this is a fetch quest. Get me this thing, and okay, cool. And you get them the thing, and like sometimes like right away you get it, and then other times it's like, oh, leave and come back. And then
Yeah.
other times it's like you leave and come back. Nope, still don't have it. Huh. Okay. Like, how,
Yeah.
do I go like 3 screens away? Do I
Yeah.
gotta go in a dungeon and come back? Like, what are we
Come back
doing here?
tomorrow?
Come
Yeah.
back tomorrow, right? Yeah. Like, what is the trigger here? Do I have to like progress the story some amount? Is there somebody I have to talk to? So there was some things where like the obscurity enticed me to figure it out.
Hmm.
And then there are other times when like the obscurity made it like, well, okay, whatever. Um, and so I feel like I got the upgrades pretty much when I should have gotten them or close to. But then there were some towards the end where there were some moments when I felt like I need to get this. I also decided that even though you can do the dungeons out of order, I decided to do them in order just
Yeah, me too.
because. And they're scattered throughout the world, but they're labeled like 1 through 8, and so you're sitting there going like, okay, like this is Zelda.
Yeah.
I mean, you do 1 through 8, right? They go up and it's not a linear increase in difficulty, but it's also not it's not nearly as you can and should take them in this order as the next kind of several mainline Zelda games were,
Right.
right? But yet it's nowhere near modern Zelda where it's like, yeah, there's dungeons. Go find them. Who knows
Yeah,
what they are? Who
exactly.
knows where they are?
Yeah.
Like you won't know till you're in it. So, yeah, I felt like also some of the upgrades, and again, this can be spoiler wall stuff, were like kind of hilariously like, oh, okay, well, that's really useful in theory, but it's not power scaled all or well at all compared to X. Or, okay, well, now that I've got Y, oh, they gave me Z. Well,
Hmm.
that's cute. Like there was things like that where I'm like, I couldn't tell if this felt like it should be like game changingly, like now I've got more power, but like it didn't, or opposite, I would stumble into something and go, whoa, what is
Hmm.
this? There's one moment where it's like, oh, if you happen to have 500 rupees right now, you can have this thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm stuck on 9.99 all
Yeah.
the time.
You
So
mentioned the economy. Yeah, it's like I haven't bought
yeah,
anything. I have bought I buy the red potions when I can
yes,
find them because my health was usually beeping, so I wanted that shit gone.
yes.
So I'd buy the red potions. But yeah, otherwise you're totally spot on. I was regularly rolling around with all the money I could carry because what am I going to buy? More bombs? No.
Yeah.
So
No. And there's and open up a chest. It's like, oh, cool. This chest had 300 rupees in it. Well, I was at 967, so
yeah.
I guess I'll rewind and save that chest for later in case I find something to buy. And even
Hmm.
then, I'm like, I'm desperate for upgrades. I did feel in the middle there was a point before I had found like the first armor upgrade or the first sword upgrade, going like, can I not buy better swords? Can I not buy? Okay, I get 1 shield. There's like 1 shield upgrade. The
Right.
first one where it goes, oh, you walk into a store, there's a better shield for sale. I think that's the only time in the whole game where you
I
can
think
just
there's one
directly
as a
upgrade.
dungeon item later. There's another
Oh,
shield, I think.
I mean, yes, there is. You're right, but I mean, that's the only time you can walk into a shop
Oh
and
yeah, right.
upgrade your sword, your shield, or your armor just by having the rupees to pay for it.
Right.
And it's like these are the core mechanics of the game, and they are completely unhelped by having money. So like,
Yeah.
and everything else that you can pay for, like you said, outside of the potions, is basically something you can find in the game. And technically, by farming hearts, it's So also, kind of baloney that fairies don't refill your whole health meter.
Yeah,
I think,
I
or
would
even
like
really
that. Yeah.
close.
If it's going to be as finicky as it is to catch the fairies in this game, which is
Dude.
pretty finicky, like, come on, give me my health back. Reward me for using that fucking net to catch those fairies.
And then they can fly away. Did you ever lose one? Because I lost one.
Oh, like if you let them out of the bottle?
Yeah, they can just fly away. It's not just like release the fairy from the bottle and you just heal. It's like you release the fairy from the bottle and then you got to tag it before it can just fly. There was one, I was up in the mountains and I was beeping and I'm like, all right, cool, like fairy. And it just immediately zagged straight off a cliff and I couldn't follow it. And I'm like, what? And it just flew away. Yeah. And I'm like, what? That should not be possible. What are we doing?
Yeah. I think that's like, looking back on it, kind of funny that the fairies are like, you know what? Peace out. Like you kept me in that bottle for so long. Yeah. I'm out of here. Yeah. I like the general idea that they're going to hide all this stuff around that you explore and find. And I think that, an average player is going to find some of the stuff, but definitely not all of it, which is cool. Like, I like that. You're going to find, you're going to find the things that you need in the dungeons, that's the Zelda formula, right? It's you do a dungeon, you find the key item helps you finish that dungeon, probably helps you fight that boss, and then it helps you get to new places in the overworld. I say probably. I saw that look you gave me because not always the case, which I don't like. I don't like finding an item in a dungeon in A Link to the Past and then getting to the boss fight and being like, well, the thing I found doesn't do anything. What am I supposed to do here with this boss? Or like, I have multiple things that can do fire. Why is the only thing that can do fire the one that costs the only fire thing that can hurt the boss costs the most magic? Yes. Why is that happening right now? Stuff like that, frustrated me. But what I do like is that if you are so exploration focused that you're like, I'm going to poke around and go everywhere, you're going to find a bunch of stuff, like not just rupees, not just hearts. You're going to find magic spells. You're going to find new, magic rods that can shoot out fire or ice. You're going to find a bunch of cool stuff out there. And those things are sometimes useful, sometimes not. But they are rewards for being like, I wonder what's over there. Because one thing I do like about this is the map has very little wasted space. Like there's something on most screens, whether it's something to find, a cave, or, a house, a shop, or, the way into a different place in the map or something. Yeah. There's very few liminal spaces, we'll say. Everything feels important. And so if you're like, I haven't found anything up in this big corner of the map, there's probably something up there. And so if you're going to experiment around and stuff like that, you might find some stuff. But when I say that, when I say that this is the beginning of that formula, it's kind of incomplete in here, where the thing you got in the last dungeon is not necessarily going to help you get into the next dungeon. And I had a couple times, there's two on the tip of my tongue. Well, I know what they are. That's not the right phrase. There's two that I'm holding back for spoilers. So I guess. But there's two where it's the dungeon is there. I need a key item to get into the dungeon. I didn't get the key item. You don't get that key item in a different dungeon. You get it by doing something in some random corner of the map, some random place. Yeah. So you get to that dungeon, you're like, I can't get in there. What do I need to do? And the answer is go either look it up, ask a friend, or go wander, until you find it or until you give up. And those things where it's the formula is not quite tightened up to the place where it would be in later games, where I prefer it. I like, you do optional stuff to find optional items that will maybe help you out. That's cool. But make those things be optional. Don't require them later on. Yeah. Is what I'm saying. I was looking at walkthroughs a lot, and it would be what's the best way to fight this boss? Well, the best way is this optional item that I didn't have, but I think it's kind of cool that if you were to go explore and find that optional item, you're going to kick that boss's ass. That's a reward for you. That's cool. Yes. But then when I'm like, how do I get into this temple? It just has this weird symbol in front of it. I don't have anything that can do anything with that. And the answer is, it's a thing you thought maybe was optional. You find by exploring this unrelated place. Yeah. I don't think that's as good as the example before.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say the formula of you walk into a dungeon and it's like, oh, you got the hook shot. Okay, great. This is the hook shot dungeon. All the
Yeah.
enemies are hook shot. All of the puzzles are hook shotty. And then the boss will be the hook shot boss. Like, and then who knows how much you use the hook shot the rest of the game. I don't think that's an ideal formula. You know, I like dungeons where every dungeon has variety and the addition of items adds depth and variety to the dungeon, as opposed to just being, this is the life hack for this dungeon, this is the life hack for this dungeon. But this is the life hack for this dungeon, that is the life hack for that dungeon formula is better than, you will get items in dungeons and outside of dungeons, and some of them will be useful and some of them will not, and some of them will be life hacks for some dungeons and others not. And the bosses and the dungeons don't line up to where what gets you through the dungeon will get you through the boss.
Right.
And so you're just going, okay, and scrambling to find out what it is, or just going, you know what, okay, then I'm just going to sword and shield everything unless there's something specific. And that's going to be annoying as heck, but it's better than going in and draining all my magic power trying to, well, does this it? Nope, that did nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's either, you know, save scum or rewind or leave the dungeon and go farm for magic power, question mark? Like, what is that what you're supposed to do? Go buy medicine? Like, you're supposed to burn another hour just getting enough magic power because you tried to face the boss and you guessed, oh, this might be fire. Oh, nope, it's not fire. Okay, you know, that does not feel nearly as satisfying.
Yeah. You know, I think that the ideal is like in the middle of that, where like you do use that hook shot. We use it, like the hook shot's one that like is super useful throughout most of the game, but like using it as an example, the ideal is you find the hook shot in the dungeon. The hook shot lets you do the more advanced puzzles in there, and it's useful against the boss. And then the hook shot continues to be useful throughout the rest of the game.
Yes.
That's the ideal thing.
I agree. Yes. By the way, can I just say, I fell off my goddamn chair when I got the hook shot. I had no idea that the hook shot was a Link to the Past thing. I was like, oh, what? The hook shot is this far back in the series? And that was one of the key ones for me where, you know, I'm talking about all these different items, you know, the fact that there is magic power, that the upgrades are the weird little hookah, the big hookah and the little honey pot of green. Like, I thought this was like a Wind Waker thing. You know, there's so many things that appear for the first time here that I had no idea it went that far back in this series. And it just, again, lends credence to the, like, if you're looking for like the first real Zelda game, it probably really is this one, because there's so much that's the same from here forward.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, again, with hookshot, that's a good, you get it. It's useful, but it's not the only thing you need to get through that dungeon or that boss. And then it's useful again the rest of the game.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of like both like two separate forks of being unsatisfying in A Link to the Past. There's one where like the walkthrough sometimes would just say like the dungeon item's completely optional. You don't need it. And that sucks. Like, I go through the trouble of finding the big key so I can open the big chest and get my big gamer treat, and it's not something that's helpful. That sucks. Yeah. And then the other side of that is what I think games like Twilight Princess got too far into, where the dungeon item, you will never touch it again once you leave that dungeon. Right. And it becomes, essentially, it's a key that does something slightly more interesting. And that's less interesting too. So A Link to the Past is a big mix of those three things, I feel like, with the dungeon items. So that lends to like this kind of incomplete feeling of the formula to me. Some people might be playing this and be like, I like when it was a little more loosey-goosey, but I appreciate it more when, you know, the things that you work hard for in the dungeons, because some of the dungeons are real pains in the ass, I think. The things that you work hard for are useful and good continuously.
Yeah, no, that is good design, IMO.
Yeah. Kind of on the note of dungeon design too, I had always, you know, associated Zelda dungeons with being these like really tightly designed spaces that you kind of work your way through gradually unlock like quicker ways to get from point A to point B, go through ever increasing complexity of puzzles as you go through here. And I was kind of surprised to see the dungeons in A Link to the Past are not quite that. A lot of them are kind of like straight shots through just a series of like dangerous rooms, less so than puzzle rooms, which is something this series really leaned into later on. And there's a real lack of like shortcuts, especially if you're playing this game straight up, not using save states. The run back to the place when you died is really annoying in this game. And God forbid you die on the boss fight. There's no shortcut back to the boss fight in a lot of the dungeons, and it sucks. So like, it's something that, again, I think this is done much better later on, where they'll give you a warp to the room before the boss, or you'll unlock shortcuts throughout to kind of make the run back to the boss quicker. Maybe I know like, oh, dive down this pit, go through this door that I opened up, push this block, and I'm back in front of the boss. Like it doesn't feel like it has that looping kind of design to it. And then there's a couple where the boss fights are egregiously long. Like they would make Dark Souls 1 be like, oh, what are you doing here, buddy? So it's, Zelda dungeons, I think are cool. I like the idea of them. And I like the ones later in the series a lot more than A Link to the Past for the most part. There's some good ones for sure. And there's some like creative, like playing with the idea of a dungeon. We'll talk about in the spoilers section. Yeah. But overall, especially in like the back half of the game, that set of 8 you mentioned, there's probably like 3 that I genuinely enjoyed in that. And I mean, I didn't expect that. Yeah.
I messaged you, kind of about halfway through when we chatted, and I was really surprised at how quick and easy the first couple of dungeons were. I was like, I got the big key in like the 3rd room. I'm like, what? Huh? And part of that is they didn't have the big key formula dialed down to where it's basically the big key is just for opening the boss door or whatever.
Right.
But even so, it was still like, oh, okay, well, these dungeons were pretty lickety split. Like, okay, cool, interesting. And then, they did build from there. And you were a little ahead of me at that point. You're like, yeah, that is not the state of the game. That is not how it ends up being. And I had the same thing where, some of those were really unique, both in terms of, graphically, okay, cool, the ice palace or whatever. It's like, okay, this is I don't know if that's a spoiler. There's themed ones. Surprise, guys! It's
right. It's a video game.
It's a video game. There's an ice level. Yeah. So the ice level is icy, and the look, it looks icy, and the physics are icy. A little weird how the physics are icy, but whatever. All ice physics are weird in 8 and 16-bit games, and so like that all build together. And then there are other ones where it's just like, okay, well, I'm in a dungeon, and I know there is a theme, but I don't know what it is, and we'll figure it out. There's also, I think, some where they're eager to play with some of the Super Nintendo's stuff, like transparencies. It felt kind of like, oh, I'm feeling like this is like a tech demo versus we had a great idea for a dungeon design. It was kind of like, hey, we could do this. We could do that. We could put that in the game, and that could be the dungeon. You're like, okay, and then the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th time you're backtracking through it, you're like, why did we do this? Why? So yeah, I definitely agree that the series of 8 towards the end was like very hit or miss.
Yep. So I think overall, I was thinking about this. I've been playing Pokemon, so I got Pokemon on the brain too. I think both of these series have like very established like formulas that work. Zelda did before they went away from it. I think that the Zelda formula, explore around, find the dungeon, find your way into it, get that key item, et cetera, et cetera. We've been through it. I think that's a formula that works. And when it works in A Link to the Past, it works as well as it ever has. It's a really satisfying type of game to play, I think. And it's just, for every one of those where it works and it hits on all those cylinders, there's another one where you're like, what were you doing with this dungeon here? Like, what was the idea?
Yeah.
And it was surprising to me to find, especially from Nintendo and this like series of creators that we know, and you know, I love much of their output. There's a lot of these dungeons, especially where you're just like, what was the idea? Was the idea just to have this confusing series of rooms and hallways that doesn't make sense when fitting together? Like,
Right.
Was that the idea? Because if that was the idea, okay, you succeeded on that idea.
Yes.
But this is the thing where it's like, I think that this game set the formula but didn't nail the formula. And then later, especially Link's Awakening and Ocarina of Time nailed what this game set up, I think.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm at with like the gameplay specifically. I think that's taking us into our kind of final thoughts for the non-spoiler portion of the episode. So again, I think it's obviously a really important game for the series, for gaming history as a whole. And so, I don't know, when we answer the question, who do we recommend this to? I guess pretend that whoever's still with us has not played the game yet.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting one too, because I think that like, obviously if you love the Zelda series and you never played A Link to the Past, like, yeah, play A Link to the Past, see where this stuff came from. You're gonna have a bunch of those moments, like you said, with the hookshot, Ty. But otherwise, is there another person that you would recommend this to outside of the Zelda diehards?
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone with even a passing familiarity with Zelda should fire up Nintendo Switch Online and play the first 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
All of the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing moments that are in there will hit. This is that thing. It's also fun. The story is compelling. You're getting that story throughout. And you know, if you stick with it long enough to basically get the Master Sword, you can go, okay, cool. That was a cool little experience. And if you like Nintendo games enough, you have the Nintendo Switch Online, play it. You know, great, cool. And if you like it, you know, if you're having fun, keep having fun, I guess. And I think other people would, but like if you don't at least like Zelda or at least like 2D retro games, you know, it's a pretty half-hearted give it a shot, because it's like then you've probably played enough Zeldas or enough 2D games to know it's not your thing, or you don't immediately love it. And I don't think you're gonna immediately love this either.
Yeah. It's a weird one for recommendations for sure. Because am I recommending this because I'm like, yeah, you're gonna have a great time playing it? I'm not recommending it for that. But I will like easily, full-heartedly recommend it to Zelda fans and people who like, I want to play important games throughout gaming history.
Yes.
Like, yeah, absolutely play A Link to the Past. It's one of the most important games in gaming history. But like, I just return back to that thing where it's like, if you're looking for the definitive Zelda experience, the one that's hitting on all cylinders, I don't think that's this game. I think it's one of, probably for me, it's either Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, and then you start to get into them doing weird stuff with the formula. Like, I think the Minish Cap is a great game. I think Majora's Mask is a great game, still within like that formula. I think Wind Waker is a great game. Like, but they're all toying with it and adding on top of like that basic thing. If you want to get on like that real basic foundation for the series, I think the Ocarina of Time, to my memory, I haven't played it in a long time, but and then Link's Awakening. Those are the two that really nail it, in my opinion. And this is a stepping stone on the path to get to really nailing it, I think.
For sure. And I mean, I think, you know, if you're like, why do people play Grand Theft Auto games, and you play a Grand Theft Auto game from before Vice City? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you're going to be like, wait, what? How did they make 3 of these before they made, like, how was this shooting? You know, like, how was this ever a giant hit? Right. Like, I think it's like nailing the formula is important as much as the predecessors to nailing the formula. And like I said, there's still a good chunk of the Zelda bones in Zelda 1 also, you know.
Yeah.
And like that's even more uneven and even less, you know, impressive on first glance, you know, because again, the pixel art here is really nice. And
Yeah.
for the most part, it's very, very pretty. So like it's definitely a huge game, and people who grew up loving it and still love it, like please still love it, you know. Like there's a reason why this was a huge quantum leap at the time, and it was a huge quantum leap from game to game. And they did innovate so much that they then did better later. So all of that is too, and I think if you aren't normally interested in this, it might be interesting to go, oh, this is how you guys were living in 1992. You know, like there's at least a drive-by element of like, oh wow, this is how they scaled difficulty. Then this is how you know, storytelling, and like something that was game critical might get one passing mention by an NPC, and something that was completely skippable might have been thrown at you like 8 times by 8 different characters over 10 hours, and you're going like, what? You know, what is this signposting, you know? But it's because they were figuring it out. And I still had plenty of great moments with the game. I still mostly enjoyed my time with the game. But it was certainly more enjoyable to have my eldest with me, and we could kind of banter back and forth. And you know, instead of going to my Discord, I was going to her, or you know, instead of going to Google, and she, you know, it was great because we could kind of filter it, you know, because I'd be like, okay, I'm missing something. What is it? And she would just go, oh well, look up there. You know, be like, okay. So she could kind of give me a hint system that doesn't exist, and then it didn't feel like I was just like giving up and taking the L and being like, okay, like walk through time. I guess I'm just gonna, you know, like
in a way, playground knowledge is still sharing secrets on the playground is still alive, especially if you have it in person. Or like I said, you know, at least one time I got in Discord and was like, you know, someone help me out with this. And, you know, people know the answer. So that the spirit of that is still alive. It's just a little different than it was. One quick thing, I don't have to make this like a big thing, but
sure.
This is something that I've been developing, and I've used Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night as examples for this in the past, and now A Link to the Past is going in this group where there's I feel like there's a pushback against accepting that later games after these like super famous, again, none of these are first entries, but kind of like setting the tone for where the series went. Some even inventing genre names that people hate.
Sure.
Like there's a thing out there where people are like, no Metroid game, no Metroidvania will do it as good as Super Metroid did it. No Castlevania game will do it as good as Symphony of the Night did it. No Zelda game ever approached what A Link to the Past did. And it's like, open your heart to what these series did later on, because all 3 of these to me, and I just, you know, I could probably throw more series in if I sat down and wrote things down, but I've been on this for a while.
I would say Vice City would be perfect for this.
Yeah,
where it's like,
exactly.
Okay, Vice City is where Grand Theft Auto became Grand Theft Auto. It's not a better Grand Theft Auto than 4. You know what I mean? It's like, and if there were like, you know, 20 games in the series instead of like 5 total.
Yeah, or maybe even Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, maybe even Grand Theft Auto 3 would be the one where obviously, I think Vice City is a better example because nobody anymore is being like Grand Theft Auto peaked at 3. Like no one's saying that. So I think Vice City or San Andreas might be the one. But it's like this thing where it's like, people, open your heart to what these series did after the one that you played when you were 10 years old. Like, nostalgia is precious. Keep that. This is not a nostalgia podcast, so I'm not really like talking about that. When we do like the critiques of the games, but like your nostalgia for Super Metroid or A Link to the Past is precious. And especially in today's day and age, like hold on to anything that makes you happy for sure. But that being said, I don't think any of these are the peaks of their series, because it was like, we're trying this thing, we're setting this thing, and then we're iterating it in future games. And we're really bringing new ideas and we're refining the older ideas. into better games, in my opinion.
Right.
Like this is like it feels like I did a hot takes episode with friend of the show, Darren, over at Pixels and Polygons.
Oh yeah.
And shout out to Darren and Pixels and Polygons and all the projects that he does, man. And on that, one of my hot takes was that Super Metroid's not the best Metroid game, and Symphony of the Night is not the best Castlevania game. There we go. We got one of his projects back there.
Retro Game Zines are right
the
behind
Retro
me.
Game Zine. Yeah. Oh, by the time people hear this, you can probably read my Retro Game Zine article about Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color.
Nice.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, I think that there's like a stubbornness to admit that later games in these series innovated beyond what that first one did and iterated on what that first one did and made better experiences out of it. And I'm putting A Link to the Past in that category. If anyone's still here at an hour and a half into the show, they're here for the discussion. Yeah, I think that this is really important to not get stuck on the formative one and just never admit that anything's ever going to surpass what those games did.
Well, and I'll say, there's a lot of series where it's the case, the jump from 2D to 3D. And, FunFactor, our first series, we decided to cover 1995 to 1997, our first season, right? And so there's a lot of this. A lot of stuff that was perfected in 2D made the jump to 3D and had a lot of jank. Yeah. And, Final Fantasy 6 to Final Fantasy 7, we talked about this where it's like, okay, Final Fantasy 7 was revolutionary and a gigantic step forward in so many ways for the genre, for the PlayStation, for video games, and also as an RPG, it is broken and janky in a lot of ways that Final Fantasy 6 wasn't. And I remember having being on the couch with my friends and we're kind of taking turns playing it and going like, okay, but like 6 was better, right? Like, it's a better RPG. It's a better, the story is better told.
I'm here with you.
And we were kind of like, yeah, like, right. And so like, okay, you can hold on to that take. It is nuts to say, and nobody's ever done a better RPG since. Like, what? Like this is literally like an entire series of other podcast episodes. But I think if you're sitting here going, nope, they nailed it with Link to the Past, and then they totally stumbled when they fell to 3D. A, you're wrong. Like, objectively, empirically, you're wrong. Ocarina is awesome. And then B, like, they've continued to iterate and improve on this formula in many ways and in different directions, and, a little too far this way, a little too far. And, different games have different combinations or whatever. So, like, I just don't think that pointing to Link to the Past and going, this is the best it ever was, made sense even at the time and really doesn't hold up. Yeah, it's just a thing. As I searched A Link to the Past on YouTube, a bunch of videos came up with thumbnails that said never got better or, the peak of the series. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, come on. And so grouping this in with this thing where I'm like, just come on, open your heart to what this series did after the one that you played when you were 10. I think you're going to find some great games. So all that to say, A Link to the Past, complicated discussion coming to it in 2025. I'm not going to do the math, but 32 years after the game, the math was wrong. Even when I said I'm not going to do the math, 34 years after it first released, it's still, full of interesting conversation. And, I do a series on my Patreon where I go play retro games, and I don't pressure myself to finish it, but the goal is always to see what they were doing. And I did Zelda 1, and I did Zelda 2 on that series, and I love going back just to see what the series was doing at this step in its evolutionary line. Or I love going back and playing the first Ultima game. And I know I'm not going to have a good time playing the first Ultima game, but I want to see what RPGs were like in 1980 or whenever that came out. And so on that note, it's a very easy recommendation for people to play A Link to the Past if that is of value to you, to see what it did for the series, but also like how many Super Nintendo games or later were like, we're going to do combat like A Link to the Past, and we're going to have an RPG like that. Like that's a big thing. So, I remember playing Terranigma and being like, are they trying to do Zelda here with like the combat in Terranigma? So yeah, anyway,
big rambles toward the end of this. So many thoughts about this. Let's put a pin in a link to the past until the spoiler section, and let's do our plugs, and then we'll come back with spoilers. So for our plugs, we always start with the guest. And I said before we started recording, your podcast co-host Aiden, when he was on the show, did not get a chance to plug FunFactor because it wasn't public yet. So, Ty, it's your turn. Tell the people about FunFactor podcast and, of course, the things that you write and where people can find those things.
For sure. Yeah, FunFactor is, we had been doing it lately for 2 years total and pretty seriously developing for like 8 to 12 months before. And it was like a week or two from launching when Aiden did this show. So funfactorpod.com, and the kind of the elevator pitch is, I don't know if you know, If Books Could Kill, podcast with Michael Hobbs and Peter the Law Guy, at Peter the Law Guy, from like Maintenance Phase and You're Wrong About, like that guy, where they look at old airport books, you know, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, Freakonomics and stuff.
Yeah.
So we do that with individual retro video game magazines. So we take one issue and we review the review is the big hook. But then we're flipping through and we're looking at the masthead, we're looking at the editors, we're catching up with people, what they did, look at the feature, and we flip through literally the magazine. On YouTube, we have slides, so we drop in the screen caps of all of the scans of the magazines themselves, and mix in, what did we think of this when we were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and what do we as writers who've done professional games writing, who've done podcasts, who've done analysis. Aiden won the Hugo Award for book criticism, science fiction and fantasy. Like as critics, like, what do we think of the work that they were doing then? How is it different from what now? And, kind of weaving that all in together. And so it's a nostalgia bomb, but it's not just a nostalgia bomb. And yeah, we try to just always have fun with it. So funfactorpod.com.
Yeah, super fun show. And as I've told you, off air, I'll say it on air. When I saw the idea for the show, the elevator pitch, like you said, and listened to the first episode about that Final Fantasy VII review, I was like, fuck, it's like, how many new podcasts come out and you're like, oh, it's like these other podcasts. And like, this one's like, I've never heard of anyone doing this with video game magazines. So super cool. Yeah. And, I grew up with gaming magazines, so it's fun to revisit some of the things that I used to read. And I just love like kind of revisiting it now, especially now that I'm a critic in the capacity that I am, and hearing how criticism was so different back then. It's wild how different some of the approaches were to reviews and things like that. So very cool. A show that basically anybody that listens, anyone that's here this deep into this episode, you're probably guaranteed to like FunFactor because you love gaming if you're here, or you love the sound of our voices. And if you love the sound of our voices, you get at least one of us on FunFactor. So I definitely recommend people go check the show out. It's very, very good. And again,
thank you.
There's a new idea for a podcast. What a concept. A podcast that is not like the other shows that I've listened to before. It's very cool.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Yeah. And I will say that's something that, we thought we kind of had something, and I worked on the art. I spent a bunch of time on the art, and like every time we showed somebody the art or they heard the concept, they're like, ooh, like you are on to something with this. Like this is great. So we're always trying to, live up to that premise and execute it. And it's super cool whenever we hear people are digging it, because we love doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then where can people find the things that you write?
For sure. So this is complex. I'm best known for my NFL analysis. Right now I'm at Pride of Detroit Direct. I do a Premium Lions newsletter column for them, which you can only get by subscribing to Pride of Detroit Direct. It's $50 for a year if you really like Detroit Lions football. I've been at a bunch of other places, including Bleacher Report, Vice, and 538 most recently. RIP to 538.com, a good website, dead too soon. Yep. But tyschalter.com is my main website that I'm hoping I can get updated before this goes live, because I realized how rough it is. And then newsletter.tyschalter.com goes to Gimme Schalter, which I did a weekly just free newsletter for a couple of years. There's a bunch of thoughts on there that I think all those takes still hold up, and it's got links. So mostly just Blue Sky, where I am linking to my work that goes out at various freelance sites, plus FunFactor whenever an episode goes. That's just at tyschalter.com. There's also a lot of just shit posting and live tweeting sports and doing all the things that you're not supposed to do on social media if you want to build a following. But Mina Kimes was kind enough to put me in her NFL starter pack, so I have like north of 25,000 followers, and 24,000 of them have no idea what they got themselves into.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with those starter packs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can attribute most of my social media following to, like you said, kind people putting me in starter packs. And then, you get, shit posting, like you said. But hey, I know there are Detroit Lions fans out there that listen to this show. I know you personally. Okay. I know how much you care about the Lions. So please check out the stuff that Ty does. And then everyone else, follow on socials. I've had a chance to read some of the writing that you shared with me, and I really enjoyed what I read. So
thank you.
Be looking forward to what's coming up next, for sure.
It means a ton, Dave.
Yeah, of course. And okay. Well, I did my plugs up at the top, but I mentioned my Discord server a couple times. If anyone out there would like to join us and be part of, I'm usually in there talking about the games that I'm playing as I'm playing them, and then final thoughts go out into the show here. But if you want to be there and chat with me while I play through everything and maybe help me out with the next Super Nintendo game I play, the Discord server is a great place to be. It's also a very nice community of people. Just a nice, cool place to hang out. And we all know how valuable that is online. So there's an invite link down in the show notes where you can join our server, and we would love to have you. And that's all. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it will be full spoiler time for A Link to the Past. All right, before we get to full spoiler time for A Link to the Past, a few quick announcements about things happening on the show and the customary thank yous. August's episode of Tales from the Way Backlog for $5 and up patrons is out now. It is about Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, and September's episode is upcoming. That is about The Legend of Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon. So, if you think that sounds cool and you want to hear me talk about playing that cursed game, you can subscribe at the $5 level and you'll get that and a new episode every month. Speaking of Patreon, for all paid patrons, there is a poll which should be running right about now. These games were all selected by patrons, so thank you to everybody who submitted the games and thanks to everyone who's voting, and you can join them too. All this can be done at patreon.com/RealDaveJackson, where you'll join in the community with these fine folks, such as Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast Crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Ficori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Silcanet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, Matthew Turner, John E., Aliasi, Joseph Hooper, Yorkie Duval, and more. Thanks to all of you for your support. It means a lot to me. And once again, you can join them too at patreon.com/RealDaveJackson. With that being said, let's get back. It is full spoiler time upcoming for The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. All right, we're back. Full spoiler time for The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Woo-hoo. And in this spoiler section, we are not going to talk much about the story. We might talk about moments that happen. I kind of talked earlier about the difference between the plot of A Link to the Past and your experience story, and that's kind of what we're going to deal with here. But we are going to start with the thing that... so it's not going to be a linear walk. That's what I always say. So if you don't want spoilers, we might spoil the end here soon, but I don't know. Anyway, long podcast, starting to lose my mind. So we held back something from the non-spoiler portion of the episode that people who played A Link to the Past are like, why are you not talking about this? And it's because we decided that it's a cool moment that could constitute a spoiler. If someone's going to go completely fresh into A Link to the Past, it's going to be surprising when you do the 3 dungeons, you get the Master Sword, you go to rescue Zelda, and you get turned into a fucking rabbit and sent into the Dark World. Even I forgot on this playthrough, I forgot about the rabbit section. I was like, Nintendo taking a big swing with something weird in the story here. But yeah, this whole difference between the Dark World, the Light World, you're able to switch between them semi at will. And then of course its implications in like the kind of surprise, there's an entire game after the game that you thought was the game type of thing, right?
Yeah. And it was wild to me because it was not only whoa, I was not expecting this, especially when we're thinking about, okay, Zelda 1, Zelda 2, this is the next Zelda game. There's nothing like this in those games. And so now we have, like you said, it's you're turned into a rabbit, sent to the Dark World. And they're talking about the magic mirror. They're talking about 7 mages. They're talking about all this stuff that's in Twilight Princess and stuff. And I'm just like, what? Like, I had no expectation that this was how big a swing that they were going to take with this. And I was like, damn, they are cooking. They are really cooking.
Mm-hmm. This is that moment, one of the moments where I can imagine maybe in 1992, and if I had played Zelda 1 before this, and then I played this and I'm like, okay, I know how this shit works. I played the first game, and then you don't know how this shit works. They added an entire extra game after the part where you thought would be the end. So like, I don't know how long it takes people. I never beat Zelda 1. I don't know how long it takes, but like, if you're good enough that you can beat Zelda 1, like it probably doesn't take forever, right? So then you get to that point in this game and it's like, surprise, 8 more dungeons, a way to flip between 2 modes of the world and stuff like that. It's cool. And it, like you said, like Nintendo's cooking with ideas here and obviously taking advantage of more memory and being able to build bigger games on the Super Nintendo. And so like, this is a moment, this is a cool thing. And it's a thing where it's like, oh, you thought you knew what this sequel to Zelda 1 was going to, like, effectively a sequel to Zelda 1 was going to be. Surprise, motherfucker.
And you know, some of the side quests, you know, the whole Flute Boy side quest, you know, where you say, oh, my son went off to go seek the golden power and never returned. And then others, oh, well, he always played this flute and he had a pet bird, and you see like an echo of him and stuff. And it kind of, you know, evolves from there. And there's like switching back and forth between the light world and the dark world. And he's like, well, I can't play it anymore because like the golden power, you know, Ganon transformed me into this like weird monster. And, you know, and then he said, oh, can you play it for me one last time? So Link plays the flute and he turns into a tree and petrifies. And so it seems like he's dead. You go back to the light world and, you know, give the dad the flute. And he's like, oh, I see, you know, and it's like, I can just tell from your eyes, like what happened. Like, it's okay. And you keep the flute. And then you play the flute and that unlocks the fast travel mechanism. And it's like, so it's not only this like really, really touching moment that involves the switching back between light and dark worlds. You have these characters, you're invested in them, and it unlocks fast travel. Kind of.
Yeah.
Because it only works in the light world. And then not all the areas in the light world are accessible in the dark world. And so you're sitting there going like, okay, I thought this was the answer to my problem. And it actually is almost more annoying now that I have fast travel in one side, but not the other, and can warp one way, but not both ways. And so it's like one of the best parts of the game for me, kind of wedded to one of the worst parts of the game for me.
Yeah. I think that the light and dark world, as I said, very cool moment, very cool reveal that you have this entire game, and then very cool idea to have parallel worlds that you move between them to traverse the world or solve puzzles or something like that. In practice, this was super annoying.
Yes.
I hated this. Yes. And The thing is, for me, the thing that made me hate this is how limited your ability to switch back after you play the flute to go to the light world, or you do the mirror to go to the light world. How limited your ability to get back to the dark world is. Because a lot of times you're like, okay, I get it. So there's this thing in the dark world that's not there in the light world. So if I go to the light world, I get past this obstacle, but the dungeon's in the dark world. So how do I get back to the...
Yes.
So you're just wandering around looking for that one little tile that will send you back to the dark world. And they're kind of hard to... They're not kind of hard. They're very hard to find.
Extremely
for me. The one in
hard.
the desert, like how the fuck was I supposed to find that one up there?
No.
And so...
No. Yeah.
The limitation of like, you put this little like shiny thing on the ground and you have to return to that or find the special tile to switch back to the dark world so you can actually get your business done. I think you mentioned earlier, like moments in the game where you're like, I know what I have to do, but I can't find the thing that's going to let me do it.
Yes.
And for me, a lot of that was, I can't find the way to get back to the dark world.
Yes.
So that I can go in the dungeon's right there. I know it's right there. Or like the thing I need is right there, but I need to be in the dark world for it. Super frustrating for it. I played A Link Between Worlds, which for my money is much, first of all, just straight up much better than A Link to the Past, but one of the best Zelda games, full stop. It's like a semi sequel to A Link to the Past. So they have the light world and dark world, but it's in fixed spots in A Link Between Worlds.
Okay.
Little cracks in the world where you can slip between. So like you see, and they're not everywhere, but there's lots of them. So you're never like, I can't find a way to get back. Like you'll find a crack and then puzzle your way to get up to it. And then you get in there. It's super intuitive. And it's one of those things where it's like, they had this idea, then they iterated it on like the sequel to it. And it just smooths out all of the bad frustration. Like I want to get your take on this, actually.
Yeah.
I think there's value in being frustrated and being lost. Like there's value in that. But there's a difference between like a good, productive frustration, friction, being lost, and just like, I left my little thing to return to the dark world so far away. I can't go back to it.
Right.
And then there's one place in this like one quadrant of the map that will let me go back to the dark world. Where the fuck is like that? Doesn't feel like good frustration to me. And a link between worlds like completely solved that issue and made switching between them fun and in an interesting traversal mechanic. Whereas in here it was kind of a pain in the ass. But yeah, what do you think? Like, are you with me there?
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's like, there were moments that did work for me. Like there was one I was in the middle of a dungeon and there was a room where it was like the only way to get to the next thing was to push a switch. And then the door opened up. And if you walked off the switch, the door closed. And there were no other obstacles in the room. Nothing was movable. Nothing was heavy. There wasn't picking anything up. Doesn't make you heavy. If it does, drop it. It doesn't. And I'm like, okay. There's got to be a thing that makes heavy things. Yeah. Is there a thing that makes heavy things? I finally, I said, okay, like eldest, is there a thing that makes heavy things? And she's like, yes, actually there is. And I'm like, okay, all right, that makes sense. Right. So like that was a frustration that like had a logical solution and it did exist in the game. And I would have gone and looked for it if I had spent, had the time to spend to go look for it. Right.
Right.
So it's like, okay, that makes sense. But like what you're saying, it's like, okay, I switched, from the dark world to the light world. I get past a spot, and then how do I get back to the dark world? I have to go look for it. I can't, if I backtrack, then I'm unachieving the thing that I achieved. Yeah. Also, there were times I'd get like not soft locked, but it felt like soft locked in that situation, right? Where I'm like, okay, I undid or did the thing I'm supposed to do. If I can just get back to the dark world at all, I'm good. And it would be like, I would just, okay, you know what? Save and quit. And then come back to the title screen and then come back in. Because I still don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to whether you start out in the light world or the dark world when you reload your save. Because I couldn't find it. It feels random every time. And so I was like, okay, if I start out in the dark world this time, I'm good. And like, nope, start out, okay, save and quit. Okay, now get back in. Hey, I'm on the pyramid. I'm in the dark world. Cool. So, like that should not be how these things are designed. Yeah. And it also felt it played with this idea more than it really executed on it. Sometimes, like there's the water one where I think it's right after you get the mirror and you're like, okay, cool, I can switch back and forth. Oh, this is going to be cool. Like I'm going to be switching back and forth. These puzzles are going to be designed where I'm going to be switching back and forth between that's cool. And it's like, all right, cool. You magic mirror into the light world, you pull the thing, water, okay, and then you find a way to then you realize it doesn't work like you think you use your portal or find some other way to get back to the dark world. You're like, oh wait, this is a little bit awkward. You go in, oh, that did something, but then it's a dungeon, so it's like everything else other than that switch resets when you go in and out of dungeons. And you're not switching back and forth dungeon to dungeon. There's not a light dungeon and a dark dungeon that you're constantly switching between. That was just like, that was the best, like most explicit, you're here, switch this, come back, related to any of the dungeons. And they never went back to that right, where like you're inside a dungeon and you need to switch worlds to go further. So like right off the bat I was like, oh, okay, this isn't as well fleshed out an idea. And then it only got worse from there in terms of finding entrances to dungeons, finding exits from dungeons. I'm like, this is miserable. The fact that there's no fast travel within the dark world and no switching at will. And like you said, the mountains, if you're in the dark world and trying to get into the mountains, and it almost kind of fed into the thing we were talking about before, the lack of familiarity, the lack of the world like sticking to your brain, where it's like, how do I get up into the mountains? Without
it's like
being in the mountains.
It's like I've done this 3 times. But I can't remember how to get up there.
How. Like, so that was a big source of frustration for me.
There's the last dungeon that involves light and dark world switching in the mountains, and that was such a nightmare to find for me that I just looked it up. I just followed a walkthrough for how to find the dungeon, and I'm glad that I had the little item, the little medallion. I forget exactly the medallion you need. But that's another one where it's like I found that medallion in a random place 10 hours ago, and I hate when games do this where they're like, they give you this item, it's never useful, so I forget that I have it. And then you get to the end, and it's like, guess what, motherfucker? You remember that item you've never used, and your eyes gloss over when you're looking at the item screen? That's the one that you need. They put the little symbol there to help, but it's like, come on, like make that thing useful in more situations if you want me to think of it.
Yeah, and I was expecting some of the, like, because that was the Quake was the entrance to the turtle one. And I think I stumbled across one of the other ones earlier. And so then oh wait, those symbols are different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Shit. Okay. And I also kind of expected them to be like cheat codes, because there's like the ether. And at first I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And it was like, not amazing. You know, it kind of feels like graphically, it looks like it's like an absolute like board wipe. You're just going to be clearing the kit. Then it's like, oh yeah, here's the Quake. It turns all the enemies into slimes. And I'm like, okay. So if in a dungeon room with like 8 enemies and I hit the Quake, I'm still in a room with 8 enemies. They're like less dangerous enemies, but this, if the challenge is, again, I'm in the ice palace and I can't either either hit or be hit by any of them, because either one will recoil me off the bridge. This has not made the situation better for me.
So dark world, light world, cool idea, like very cool reveal of what it is, but in practice, again, it's like they had this idea, they really hamstrung how you used it to a point where I found it pretty tedious to use, and it discouraged me from exploring because I'm always tethered to that portal that I left behind. I know that, like, I don't know if they made it in a way that you can't soft lock yourself in an area where you're not, like, you could fall down a ledge and then not be able to get up to your portal again. Like, that is a thing that can happen, I'm sure. And so it discourages me from going too far from it. And so if I'm worried about that, I'm not going to go explore every corner of the map like I think the game wants you to have. And that's on top of the fact that, like we talked about earlier, the map is difficult to navigate anyway. So you add on this other complication on it, and it's like, man, I know what the game wants me to do here, but I don't want to go comb through the map. 2 maps. but the
Right,
same
right.
frustration now. So
For sure.
Yeah. You mentioned the Ice Palace, so let's talk about some dungeons or other moments that we thought were notable. You mentioned the Ice Palace, so I will just go ahead and say, other than Zelda 2, the Ice Palace is my least favorite dungeon in any Zelda game that I can remember. It's like in a stretch of just, it's like 3 bad dungeons in a row, I think. And it's just, it's when the game reaches its most hateful with like the traps and the designs and the icy floors and the moving floors that switch directions feeling like every second, where it's like,
oh yeah,
it's so hard to like map out. There's this one room that's just going to be burned into my memory for the rest of my life, where it's like the floor switches direction. There's spikes everywhere. There's enemies everywhere. There's enemies bursting from the walls and like going across the screen. It's insane. And then, you know, the Ice Palace has a bunch of those rooms where it's like you're on this two square wide icy floor with a rotating flame and an enemy that bounces you away if you hit it with your sword, and just a complete nightmare of a place.
That definitely led the league in the number of times I went into a room and just went like, fuck off. Are you kidding me? Like, what? No.
Yeah.
At least that boss was wildly easy for me.
But that was the one that you had to use the fire rod to melt stuff, right?
Yeah, and then it was just a soft, cushy brain that moved real slow, and I was just like, sword, died. And like that one, I was like, I didn't cheese, I didn't save state, I didn't do it. I just like walked into the room and walked out with the heart container and went, all right, cool.
Huh. Well, I'm glad you had that experience. That was not my experience with that boss.
I bet you didn't have this. Did you have the better sword yet? Any of the better swords?
Probably not.
I'm guessing that's what it was. I think I might have even had both sword upgrades at that point. So I bet that's what it was.
Possibly. I didn't get the sword or armor upgrades until pretty late in the game because, again, I didn't stumble across the random thing that starts the quest so that you can upgrade your sword.
Right.
Actually, I take that back. It's not random and it's not hard to find. It's like that frog guy outside of the village, but like, I didn't go talk to him. He's a frog. I don't give a shit what the frog has to say, so I didn't go talk to him. But anyway, I think that was the boss. So like, it's either that boss or a different one where it's like it's covered in ice first and you have to melt the ice, right?
Yes.
And you have to use the fire rod, which you get in a previous dungeon. So it's doing the thing that I said I wished it would do.
Yeah.
And my bone to pick with that is the amount of shots you need with the fire rod is exactly the amount of shots you can do with a full magic meter. So if you miss, or if you go in with less than full magic, you cannot fight the boss.
Nope. Yeah.
And I fucking hate when games do that. It's Mega Man 2 all over again. It's fucking ridiculous. And that's the thing where it's like, okay, so the fire rod takes a bunch of magic, but the lantern, or like the, whatever it is, the lantern that can light, torches and shit, that takes less magic, and it also sets stuff on fire at certain points in the game. Wonder if I can use that. Nope, can't use that. You have to use the fire rod.
Yeah.
So that was the thing where I was like, I went into the boss fight with less magic than I needed and couldn't do it. So I had to go farm magic so I could go in with a full magic meter. And not great. A lot of the boss fights, there's not like one trend throughout the boss fights that pissed me off, but a lot of them had their little individual things that pissed me off. There's a lot of like bullet hell in the bosses, which I didn't appreciate.
Yes.
There's the one that if you hit it or if it hits you, it knocks you off the platform.
Yes.
And it's not a bottomless pit. It's one you just fall down to a lower floor.
You got to go back up
and restart the boss fight.
Yeah.
So it's like, this sucks. It doesn't kill you. So I guess that's nice of it, but yeah. Anyway, I think I forgot to bring up, my distaste for a lot of the bosses, which made it really surprising that I thought the final boss was great.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. Ganon was great. I'm trying to remember which one it is with Blind the Thief, who is the one where it's like, because if you've been talking to all the NPCs, there's this thieves den. There's one point you go into the thieves den and they're like, oh, hey, this used to be the thieves den. And then you go down there and there's like unbelievably easy block pushing to like get some of their stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool. And they're, like, blind the thief. He hates light. All right, cool. And then a couple other people at various points mention blind the thief. And then you go into this dungeon and you kind of go through it and it's kind of long and complicated. And then there's like a jail and there's just a regular looking girl character in the jail, which we can talk about you hinted earlier, the princesses that we save in another castle, are like all the same, basically identical girl sprite palette swapped. And so she's one of those and she's, oh, thanks for saving me. Take me outside. And you immediately know something is very up, right?
Yeah.
Like this is not how you've rescued any of the other princesses. You didn't fight about, or descendants, the granddaughters of the sages.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, something's up, and this is cool. This is cool. Like I'm with you. And like I immediately knew something was up. But then my daughter went, oh, that's blind the thief. I'm like, oh, you're right, because it's like underground. And so then the only way to get the boss fight is you get to like the second to last area is over an area that you go into and there appears to be nothing. And so it's like you shatter, you punch a hole in the ground and then light comes in through the windows. And then you go into there and it's too much light and then changes form.
Yeah.
And like that's cool. However, she says, take me outside.
Yeah.
And if you try to take her outside, she goes, no, I don't want to go outside. Don't go that way. Don't go outside. And if you go, then she leaves you and you have to go back to the thing and find her. And it's because she doesn't want to go in the light. Like it's blind the thief in disguise. And so it's like, okay, then why, like, what was the plan here?
Right.
Like why did you say you saved me, take me outside, and then just make it so that she can't leave the dungeon?
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah. I didn't have an issue with that, but like the dialogue, you're right, doesn't make any sense. Like you mentioned that room, like you've done enough Zelda dungeons, even if this is your first one, you know that there's no such thing as an empty room with no purpose.
Right. No,
so
yeah. But so it's like, okay, then like if you really want to mix it up, then have it be like you get to the outside and then she turns into the boss, right? Or don't have her say, take me outside. Explicitly, right? Like it's like if you're trying to set up this narrative, like to have a narrative hook that you've foreshadowed at least a little bit for some, and then just like completely bail on the premise and just go, nah, you know you've got to have a boss fight. You know something's gonna be in that room. You'll figure it out, and we'll just trap you in here till you do. It's like, okay, because every other dungeon you can leave at will. Right. And like it would almost be cooler if she's like, actually, I can't leave. I'm trapped down here. Yeah. And then you can leave or I'm allergic to light. And then you would know if you'd read earlier, oh, this is blind the thief. Okay. She could just stay down there and you could leave like every other dungeon and just know that dungeon's unsolved until you go figure out what's going on. There's ways you could have done it. So that was another just like missed opportunity for me story wise, where it was like you took a swing, but like you did not execute this.
Yeah. There's there's a couple things that they do where like I appreciate the attempt to mix things up, like with the thief, like you said. The dungeon in the forest, like the skull dungeon, the one that's like, it's not one big continuous thing. It's like 3 or 4 separate things. It's like, I like the idea, like split the dungeon up. It's cool. It's a cool way to mix things up. But then I have to traverse the forest, which is so confusing and convoluted to get anywhere. Even if it's like, I can see it on the other side of that tree root. How the fuck do I get over there? Like it's one of those. And then I want
to emphasize it's not just the forest, it's the Lost Woods.
Yeah, the Lost Woods.
You're literally, I have to traverse the Lost Woods repeatedly as part of getting from segment of the dungeon to segment of the dungeon.
Yeah. And you're traversing the light and dark world. While you're doing that, you have these like thief characters in the woods stealing your shit.
Oh, that's
if you don't push them away. So it's like you said, these two kind of things, they're cool. They're like, let's introduce something new in here. And then the execution of it is like just not quite there, or there might be people who are like, I really love that dungeon in the Lost Woods because it's so different, even if it's a pain in the ass to figure out, like, I know there's another entrance somewhere. Where is it? Like, that kind of sucked. But I can see people appreciating that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You were saying Ganon? I was just doing
the Ganon fight. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also, well, it's also the Aghanim fights. And like, I mean, to me, this encapsulates everything that's like both good and bad about this game is, okay, you're fighting him and it's like, oh, the only way to fight him is to reflect his projectiles back at him, right? You got to swing the sword and reflect the projectiles back. Okay, cool. The last fight, you've got the mirror shield.
Yeah.
That it says in text, this reflects some projectiles back at their... All right, dope. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I know what
I'm gonna take a big L as I eat this agony, 3, because he clones himself and sends like 3 at you. And then you're okay, so there's 3. Which one do I reflect? How do I position myself so that I can reflect? Then I'll stand still and do nothing as it goes right through my mirror shield and hits me.
Yeah.
So I guess I gotta sword it back. Yep, I gotta sword it back. Okay, great. So those fights were fun, and there's some dialogue there, which is cool. Again, anytime we're getting any kind of dialogue, I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah. We're doing it. And then, you beat him and he transforms into a bat and like you jump on it and he like flies off and then you end up back on the pyramid that you were in and he like busts a hole in the ceiling and goes down. And I was like, whoa, that was cool. It was a great cut scene, really effective.
Yeah.
Also, that's where you can see that the sky is black. A thing I meant to say earlier. The dark world, there's big stretches where it's not that dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it's dark in tone.
Yeah, but it could be even darker. I think there's spots where it's like, this is no different than the desert in the light world, or whatever.
It's not the night world. It's like the bad world,
Yeah. It could have been badder in spots is all I'm saying,
In a Link Between Worlds, they call it Hyrule and Low Rule. Which again,
little judgy.
Yeah, it's not a great, not a great name. R.I.P. to everyone living in Low Rule, you bunch of losers. But like that's like the tone of it, rather than it being like the night world or something that's like it's pitch black, it's Halloween every night or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. I like the Aghanim fight because Ocarina of Time is like a super formative game for me, and reflecting the balls back at Ganon, that is extremely classic. Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
So like that was cool, and I like those kind of fights. There's one in a lot of Zelda games where you reflect the projectiles back. But totally agree about the mirror shield. Probably the most useless item that you pick up. It's effectively just another shield. There's like, those laser beams in that one dungeon that you can like stop, but that's it. That's the bad version of the dungeon upgrade, the dungeon tool in this, where you're like, okay, it's basically a thing that just lets me get on the other side of this laser beam and then not helpful ever again.
And there's no consistency to what it works with and what it doesn't work with.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of the magic cape where it's like, it makes you invisible. But it actually also makes you invincible. So, but it doesn't say that. So like you put on the magic cape and you disappear and you're just the shadow, which is cool. But then you can walk over spikes and everything, which is great. Okay, cool. It didn't say that. And then there's also an item that just orbits magic around you, so you're invincible. But why would you have that? You've got the magic cape already invincible. But that doesn't save you from like falling. So if you fall, you instantly become visible and die. But then also the lasers still see you. So all of the eye lasers in the game, of which there are like ones on, and there's also ones in walls. You put on the magic cape and they still zap you. So I'm like, I don't know.
They're infrared lasers.
Yeah. It's the J.K. Rowling phenomenon of, I invented this kind of magic and I did not think about its application in any other circumstance. And everybody immediately goes, wait, well, if you can do this, then why can't you just do that? You know, like, well, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Just don't think about it, please.
Don't think about that,
I'm
please.
begging you not to think too hard about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't find either of those items. So I did the game without the magic cape or the little orbiting magic thing. So I did find in a lot of those walkthroughs that I checked, they were like, well, this boss fight's very easy if you have these two things that I didn't have. So I was like, guess I'm doing it the old fashioned way without it. So, I mean, that's one of those things. Like, I'm not mad about that because it rewards people who do the exploration and find those things or follow earlier in the walkthrough, I guess. But for me, it was just like, okay, well, I guess it's fighting things with the sword again, probably before I find the sword upgrades. So there is a path where maybe some of these boss fights are a little less frustrating.
Yeah.
If I had found other stuff, but hey, that's the risk you take when a game is so exploration focused. Like I did a good amount of exploration. I found some optional shit. I found the ice rod, which I never used, not a single time throughout the game.
I don't think you can use it. I tried it on everything, and I don't think it turned a single thing into ice meaningfully.
Right. And then I found one of those medallions that didn't do anything except for like the story relevant time when you have to use it. Other times it's just like, you know, maybe it killed something, but it's like, I can just kill something with my sword or just run around it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the risk you take, I guess. And rewards the people who do the exploring, and that's cool. And I'm not mad at that. I'm really just mad about the things that I personally found and how much they sucked versus the things that I missed and how good they sound.
Yeah. Yeah. And even then it's still like, okay, well, like I know there's so little magic, you know, like I'm just going to pop on the magic cape and walk around because the magic bar, you know, or even in dungeons. And I think is this the solution? You know, this will at least get me through the level. Okay, but like you physically have to have a certain amount of magic to complete the level doing other stuff. So am I about to soft lock myself or, you know, put it so I have to magic mirror, zap back out of the dungeon and zap back in, you know, and farm magic if I use the magic cape here. So even when you've got the cool items, there's still that calculus.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, any other thoughts? Anything else that stuck out to you as really noteworthy? Again, I think the last boss fight was cool in a kind of surprising way. It was cool. And there was one little gimmick in it that I thought kind of sucked. The one where you have to keep the lanterns lit as you're going around.
Man, that was
not a fan of that. I checked a walkthrough and they were like, if you can time it where you press the magic and light this lamp right when the lights go out, it will glitch and the lamp will never go out again and you can keep fighting him. So I did that and avoided that, but not before I like, you know, fought the boss a few times, had a rough time during that section. And then I was like, all right, am I missing something here? And it turns out I kind of was, but yeah, that's my thought about the final boss.
No, I thought it was great. Multiple forms. And I even wasn't super sure that I got him. When I got him, you know, even though it was like, wow. Okay. Like, yeah, I'm doing it. But like, I was expecting even another form yet after that, just because this is Zelda and sometimes that happens. There was one, the middle-aged man in the desert.
Oh yeah.
Like, and this is what I was looking at earlier. Like 7 different NPCs talk about, oh yeah, he was the last member of our clan. He just sits there. He's got a sign that's, and you read the sign. It's like, don't bother me. Yep. Everybody talks about this guy. I tried every item on him. I talked to everybody. I picked up the sign and then he'll start following you. But like if you go to any of the exits, it's like, oh, you can't go this way while being followed. Okay. And if you throw the sign, he goes, hey, my sign said specifically not to bother me. Why did you throw the sign? Awesome. And that's great. That's great. But I didn't find the payoff and I wasn't literally using a walkthrough. Like I said, I tried to lean on it as little as possible, you know, have my kid kind of like, you know, so like I didn't actually look up if there's anything other than that. And then the game, you know, you beat it and credits roll. And then you get this like amazing little, okay, here's what happened with every single person. It's like the end of Animal House, like Senator Pluto Blutarsky, you know, the Flute Boy came back to life somehow. Yeah. Your uncle who you saw die in front of you in the intro he's also fine. And like, okay, great.
The power of the Triforce, I guess.
Yeah. And like some of them were cool, some of them were, touching, like the flute boy thing, that was touching. That was legitimately like, oh, okay, yeah, great. But that guy is still out in the desert. It was like literally one of the updates. Like he's still
Just
there.
hanging out.
Hanging out. And I'm like, there are like game critical items that were not mentioned or mentioned once in a way that anybody could easily have skipped or not seen, just not come across. And like there's like 18 things pointing at this guy. And as far as I know, there's no reason other than that.
And it's funny too, the way you lay that out, because NPCs don't have like rotating dialogue. They just all say the same thing.
The one thing they say.
Yeah. So the one thing that so many people say is like, hey, that guy out in the desert. And then, so I did do the thing with him. I forget how I did it exactly. But
okay.
The payoff for it is that he tells you that he used to be a thief and he pays you a couple hundred rupees to keep his secret. That's the payoff.
Wow.
Or maybe it's a bottle.
Okay.
It's like a couple hundred rupees or a
Okay.
bottle or something like, but it's not like, here, I'll upgrade your shoes so that you're quiet and you don't attract enemies, or here, I'll upgrade your sword, or here's a cool hat that, it's nothing really that interesting. Again,
That's so
for all the
funny.
attention that's paid toward him, the payoff is something that you probably didn't need an extra bottle, or you definitely didn't need 200 rupees or how much it was. So
yeah, I actually could have. I only had 2 bottles at the end, even though I had every other my whole grid of items to use was full, but I only had 2 bottles.
Maybe it was a bottle then.
Funny. Could have been.
If that was something that you missed. Yeah.
Did you talk to the big fairy in the pyramid? The transmutation one?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because that was also a spot where it's like, all right, cool. Like throw something in, see what happens. And like the first item, it actually doesn't, I didn't see the item. Like I thought it would take me to the next menu. So just hit it. And it was like, all right, cool. You throw your bow in. Oh, cool. You get the silver arrows you need to beat Ganon. Sweet. What does the next thing do? Nothing. What does the next thing do? Nothing. And there's like 50 things. And it only ever upgrades a total of 3 of them.
Yeah.
And like, I also got, it didn't do any of like the next 9. And I said, okay, like what other ones is it? Like look it up.
Yeah.
And she's like, I actually can't find which it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So I'm like, and I had to like sit there and throw every single one in, have her go, don't drop this again. I go back out, come back it, to get, none of the upgrades were as cool as the silver arrows. I think there was just 2 of them, but it was still just like, it was bizarre.
I remember having the same thing that you did where it was like, I wasn't aware that I was selecting an item to throw in. And it's like, you throw your bow and I'm like, oh no, not my bow. I need that. And then it's like, oh, it's cool. So she's like, okay, here's your upgrade your bow. And then I'm going through the list. Like, if I throw my sword in there, will I get it back? Like,
right.
What if the fairy doesn't respond to me throwing my sword in the water? But, I mean, Nintendo, they're not assholes to that degree where they're like, yep, your save is fucked. You better turn your console off and reload because you just threw your sword in a bottomless pit of water. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say before we wrap, and I know we've spent forever on this.
Hey, that's this podcast.
Yeah. I was like, I can't believe we did like an hour and 50 minutes of non-spoiler talk about Link to the Past, the princess, so I keep saying princesses because that's the role they're reduced to in the story. The maidens, the 7 daughters of the 7 sages, granddaughters of the 7 sages, who you're supposed to rescue, before you get to the actual rescuing the actual princess of Zelda. You rescue them. They're all trapped in these diamonds, and they kind of come out. And like I said, it's like a very close to the same speech, which is basically, "Oh, thank you for saving me. The bad wizard trapped me in there. Yeah, I know. You freed me. Cool, thanks." 1 sentence of differentiated lore, or like maybe 2. And even then it's kind of like, well, now that you're getting more power, you can like go beat Ganon. And then like, okay, and then may the way of the hero be true or something like that. And so you get like 4 or 5 sentences, like 3 of which are identical between all 8 of them. They don't have names. They just palette swap them for differentiation.
Yep.
And it feels extremely rote. And again, it's like, it's one of those, okay, part of it is, oh, well, this is like gaming at the time. Again, Final Fantasy IV came out before this game. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like there's a bunch of games where like you could have done more than this. You could have done better than this. And that was a bump. Like, again, with such a big storytelling swing of the Dark World flip, even to begin with, I thought we would get more than we did with them.
Yeah, that was the ones that I had mentioned earlier,
Yes.
where it's like, what if those were real characters? What if they had
Yes.
like you said, what if they had names? What if they had histories? What if they each had a piece of the puzzle of like the history of the world, and how did they end up here in the first place? Like what happened
Literally,
to them? Like
the Koopa kids in Mario 3 got
Yeah.
more run than this. They had unique designs, they had names, they all had a specific opinion on you and their place in the, you know, Bowser's campaign of war on the Mushroom Kingdom.
Right.
You know,
what if they felt connected to the regions that they're in? Like what if this
Yes.
what if the one in the dungeon in the Lost Woods had a history with the Lost Woods, and they're obviously magical in some way? So like in Ocarina of Time, how you, in other Zelda games too, how you have the three goddesses and how they're related to the formation of the world, and so they have history. Like when you find Din's Fire, you're like, oh shit, okay, I remember that from the opening cutscene, or the cutscene in the Temple of Time. Like what if they were anything more than what they are right now? And yeah, Final Fantasy IV came out the year before this. Dragon Quest V came out the same year as this. Both of those games are extremely focused on storytelling. So it's not like they were like, oh, we're not telling stories in video games yet. Like, we're not naming characters in video games yet. We're so far past the point where, I mean, either they didn't have the space or the time, or they just decided, like, you're just going to go save the maidens. It's not important who they are or what their purpose in the world was before this all happened. And they're not going to help you after this is all done either.
No.
They're gone. It's still all on you. I'm still not entirely sure what the maidens did. Like finding all the maidens broke a seal that allowed you to fight Aghanim again or something like that.
Yeah, well, because he needed their power, because it was the power of their grandfathers that made the seal that kept him from getting to the light world and taking over the light world also. And so then he captured all of them and got like, and again, we get into weird, like, power of the blood type stuff here, but like as their descendants, he used what power they had to then break the seal.
Yeah.
And as Aghanim, I guess, start taking over the light world also. So it's like that was the thing. So then you could, with them free of his grasp, then you can reseal him specifically, I think, once he was beaten.
Yeah.
Also, can we talk about and Link put the Master Sword back in the rock forever.
Yeah.
It says that, and I'm like, that is an insane thing to say. This is the third Zelda game. You think this is the last Zelda game you're ever gonna make? Maybe Shigeru Miyamoto was like, I'm not making another one of these.
I was gonna say, we're not gonna get into Zelda timeline stuff. This is an anthology, so this version of Link put the sword in the stone, and he retired. He went to chill, and I'm not aware of this game's place in the Zelda timeline, but I don't care if there's something that came after it, because this version of Link, my disdain for the Zelda timeline, and it's not the people who like the Zelda timeline or like find interest in putting these pieces together. It's more at Nintendo for like giving in to the pressure that everything has to fit together. We just went through this with an announcement with the new Donkey Kong game, and people are like, apparently there's Donkey Kong lore in the games. People are like, I want these to fit together, and I'm like, they don't fit together. It's Donkey Kong games. Come on, people.
They don't, and they shouldn't.
That's how I feel about Zelda games too. It's very clear if you just play the games, aside from explicit sequels like this and A Link Between Worlds, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, like aside from those, these are anthologies, and this version of Link retired until I guess he couldn't in A Link Between Worlds because he got
Right.
You do that shit again. There was a sequel, but yeah, he retired, and let's just let the man chill in the forest with the animals in the Flute Kid.
Yeah, that's fine. For me, like it almost seemed the way it was put as like, and there's never going to be another one of these.
Right.
Which is like, again, just an insane thing to say at this point in
you kind of, I've heard this from other creators too, who have these super successful series, and just because the series is selling a bunch doesn't mean they want to keep making them forever. So,
right.
I mean, Kojima has did so much to try to kill the Metal Gear Solid series, or try to finish the Metal Gear Solid series, and it just never happened until he got himself fired. Maybe we're onto a new conspiracy that Miyamoto wanted Zelda to end back in 1992.
Maybe. Do you know what games played means? Because I got 25 games played. Does that mean every time you quit the menu?
I think it's deaths.
Okay.
Because they give you the list in the credits of how many times you died in each dungeon.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
And so,
which is not accurate again for me, because every time it happened, I was like, oh, fuck. Not every time. Many times it happened. I was like, no, that's...
You can see it like creep up as the game got more difficult. It's like in the 3 dungeons before you get the Master Sword, it's like 0, 1, 0, and then it's like 1, 2, 3, 7, 11, and then 0, 0, 0, 0 as I started using the save states a bunch.
Pretty similar to me. I think I had like wildly inconsistent where it was like, okay, this one I had like 11 because it was like, oh, that was actually hard, and the path from back to the start to where I was is not that convoluted, and then other ones where I'm like, no, rewind, nope, rewind. So yeah, same thing for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ty, thanks so much for coming on and talking about A Link to the Past with me. In true Tales from the Backlog fashion, I thought it would be maybe an under 2-hour episode, and here we are, well past that. And that's fine with me. Love to talk as long as the conversation's worth having. I've had a good time here. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. To borrow a phrase, 5-star run times. It has been it's been an absolute pleasure, honor. Love the show. Glad to be a part of it. And again, I had a blast. And this is the way I like to talk about stuff too. So I had a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll definitely have you back on sometime if you'd like to do it again.
100%.
We'll find another game someday. You're welcome back anytime. So I appreciate it. I will give the call one more time at the end for everyone to check down in the show notes for FunFactor Podcast and to follow Ty on socials. Check out the website for writing to come in the future. And I've talked about myself enough. So thank you everyone for sticking it out to the end. You're my heroes if you're still here. And tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Hey, you there! This is Nomad speaking. If you love retro video games and you're itching for some nostalgia, check out the Retro Wildlands podcast. In each episode, I'll use game music and sound to pull you into the gaming experience while I share my own thoughts and maybe a few memories. It's a great way to relive one of your favorite games or learn about a new one. Check out the Retro Wildlands podcast at superpodnetwork.com or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there. So we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.